Fairy Tale. Master 8 Types of Dragon Slaying Magic at the Start. Chapter 1. Ahohohu. A strange cry came into his ears. Mobai slowly opened his eyes. Backquote. There seemed to be a huge black shadow. Mobai subconsciously stretched out his arm to touch it, and it was hard. Is it a big rock? His vision finally became clear. Mobai could see clearly that there was a 2-meter-tall rhino in front of him. The four looked at each other. Mobai smiled awkwardly. He retracted his arm, stood up and ran back. Where did this come from? Is this still China? And where did such a big rhino come from? Didn't I just go out to have some soy sauce? Before I went home, I heard that the Fairy Tale 100 Years quest was going to be updated, and then I waited for a car on the roadside. While escaping, Mobai finally remembered his memory before he fainted. I don't know which bastard driver got drunk in broad daylight. It rushed all the way and sent Mobai, who was waiting for the red light on the sidewalk, flying. Mobai had read many novels about reincarnation after death, but this was the first time he had seen a script about a person dying after reincarnation. Roar. Although the rhino was a little slow to react. It chased after Mobai relentlessly, roaring from time to time. Mobai looked around while running. He was now in a desolate mountain with jagged rocks. The road was not flat, and in panic, Mobai stumbled almost every few steps. On the contrary, the rhino's huge paws landed steadily, and every movement seemed to cause the mountain to shake. Mobai turned slightly and found that the distance between the two sides was getting closer and closer, so he gritted his teeth. I bet it doesn't have a good brain. Mobai rolled over and hid behind a rock next to him. Perhaps because the target disappeared, the sound of the rhino's movement gradually stopped. Mobai finally breathed a sigh of relief and poked his head out to observe the situation with a little trepidation. Why is this big guy still there? Wait, what is it doing? In his sight, the rhino was tense all over, and one of its feet kept rubbing backwards. It was clearly rushing towards this side. Realizing that something was wrong, Mobai was about to move his position, and the rock behind him instantly shattered. It was too late. The charge of this thing was too fierce, and it shattered along with the huge rock. What kind of life is this? I died twice in one day. And both times I was hit and flew away. Mobai closed his eyes in despair. He let his body draw a beautiful arc in the air. Warning. But strangely, except for the friction injury on his back when it touched the ground, he did not feel any pain in his body. In other words, the huge rock attack just now hardly caused him much damage. Not only that, Mobai even smelled a hint of familiarity from the broken rocks. What's going on? On the other side, the rhino noticed Mobai's strangeness and showed a hint of doubt. It was ready to rush over. Mobai did not continue to run away, but instead focused his eyes on the rocks scattered on the ground. Then, he picked up a piece of the ground and put it into his mouth. Crunch, crunch. Mobai didn't know what he was thinking. Maybe the behavior at this moment is more like an instinctive reaction of the body. Originally thought that the rock would be astringent and astringent, but when it was eaten, it tasted particularly crisp. It was as if there was strength in the stomach, which spread to all parts of the body. What's wrong with me? Mobai felt the changes in his body in surprise, and the strength accumulated more and more. Almost relying on instinct again, Mobai shouted loudly. A strong pressure spread from his body. The rhino, which had been attacking Mobai frantically, was shocked upon hearing the sound, and its body froze in place. Although it only lasted for a few seconds, the rhino shook itself up and resumed its charging posture. Mobai looked down at his hands and clenched his fists. Did I do the explosion just now? If I could use all this power in one place, I might really be able to defeat this beast. Roar. As the rhino rushed at him at a more violent speed, Mobai stopped dodging blindly. Instead, he took a deep breath and stretched out his lunge, exerting force with his arms forward. In his sight, the rhino's figure continued to enlarge until he was level with its ferocious eyes. Bang! The rhino's heavy blow seemed to make the entire mountain tremble. But Mobai stood in front of it motionless, with his hands firmly blocking the rhino's rough cheeks. Successful. This rock seems to contain something special. Eating it will increase your strength. Restraining his joy, Mobai jumped and pulled his body to the side. While the rhino turned around, in the gap, Mobai swept away all the broken rocks. As expected, more powerful magic power accumulated in his chest. Power will surge up after eating. The fear had long dissipated. When the rhino turned its clumsy body, Mobai was already ready. And even stretched out a finger to activate the long-lost martial arts skills. Come here. Ahohu. Faced with the shameless provocation of humans who were so many times thinner than itself, the rhino beast rushed over desperately like crazy. At the same time, Mobai closed his eyes and took a deep breath, carefully feeling the changes in his body. Just when the rhino was about to hit his body. Now! Mobai did not hold back at all, and vomited all the existing power. The majestic energy storm mixed with the broken rocks just swallowed burst out of his mouth instantly. Mobai opened his eyes wide in surprise and found that his breath had formed a huge sandstorm. The heavy body of the rhino was swept into it, and it was lifted off the ground like a piece of paper and blown to a protruding stone more than 10 meters away. Bang! The sand and dust dissipated. The protruding stone was hit with dense spider web-like cracks. The rhino's body straddled it and could no longer move. Mobai's mouth was still open, not because he continued to release the storm, but because of surprise. Obviously, the terrifying attack was beyond his own expectations. Recalling the scenes that just happened and the attack method just now. A flash of lightning flashed through Mobai's mind. Wait, this is Dragon Slayer magic. I am a Dragon Slayer wizard. Chapter 2. Mobai finally realized that he had traveled through time and space and entered fairy tale. This is a world of magic, and the manipulator of magic is called a wizard. What he just showed was an extremely rare dragon-slaying magic, a legendary way to kill dragons. In addition, the biggest feature of dragon-slaying magic is that it swallows most of the elements of the same attribute and converts them into its own magic power. And this element limitation also includes the opponent's magic. In other words, no matter how much magic a magician who plays with fire casts, he will only be swallowed by a dragon-slaying wizard with fire attributes. Free experience. So, I am a rock-type dragon-slaying wizard. Swallowing rocks and converting them into power. Let's call that move just now the roar of the cave dragon. Mobai sat down on the spot, gently placed his right hand on his chest, and carefully felt the fluctuations of magic power coming from his body. About half a minute later, a majestic and tenacious magic power slowly triggered from his chest and gradually spread to his whole body. Mobai looked down at his body, and his skin had changed a little, and the color was more like dark brown rock. Like earth armor. Intuition told Mobai that with this blessing, his defense would not be worse than the thick-skinned rhino just now. But this magic power doesn't seem to be coming out, and I can't cast it instantly. Is it because I'm not proficient? After all, it took a full half a minute. If we really wanted to fight, this time would have been gone. Thinking of this, Mobai focused his attention again, running the magic power in his body, trying to make himself more familiar with the secret. In a trance, he seemed to walk into a dark space, and not far ahead was a dark brown shuttle-shaped dragon-killing magic crystal, which was flashing at this moment. Mobai could clearly sense that the crystal exuded amazing magic power, exactly the same as the breath in the battle just now. But, I seem to have smelled the breath of other magic. Mobai did not stay for too long, and controlled his mind to continue moving his body forward. Until the magic crystal behind him disappeared. This magic power is getting closer and closer, and there is a feeling of heat. Mobai couldn't help but speed up his pace. It's almost there. After walking through so much darkness, a fiery red magic crystal suddenly appeared in front of him. The shape is exactly the same as the previous rock dragon slaying magic crystal. The heat is coming from it. Fire dragon slaying magic crystal. Mobai was overjoyed and quickly used the magic power in his body to wrap it up. It has to be said that this thing is still a bit hot. Time passed by. Under Mobai's gaze, the magic crystal finally shone, and Mobai's own magic power also had a hint of flame. Success. 2 dragon-slaying magic crystals. Looking at the whole world, dragon-slaying wizards are extremely rare. Except for the 5 children who were raised by real dragons and learned dragon-slaying magic 400 years ago. Most other dragon-slaying wizards implanted magic crystals in their bodies to comprehend dragon-slaying magic. Perhaps the dragon-killing crystal is too expensive, or perhaps it is some special rejection reaction. Except for a few perverts, I have never seen anyone who can implant 2 magic crystals into the body at the same time. The source of magic power does not seem to end. Maybe there will be other gains ahead. After calming down a little, Mobai walked towards the edge of darkness again. With the experience just now, Mobai speeded up with expectation. Not long after walking forward, an exquisite yellow crystal came into view. Sure enough, this magic power is a thunder-attributed dragon-killing crystal. Compared to the previous rock and fire, the thunder-attributed energy is particularly violent. I am afraid that it will be paralyzed by its counterattack if you are not careful. But Mobai had previous experience and did not rush it. He just slowly used magic power to assimilate it bit by bit. Yes, it is the thunder attribute. The same power as Laxus. After taking the power of the 3rd dragon-killing magic crystal into his pocket, Mobai simply did not hide it and burst out magic power in one breath. The same magic fluctuations instantly resonated in his mind. Then he made an amazing discovery. There are 5 more crystals. Wouldn't that mean I have 8 kinds of dragon-killing magic at the same time? Mobai took a long breath and raised his hand to rub his face. It's not time to be happy yet. What he needs to do now is to refine them all in one go. Mobai quickly stepped forward to follow the trail. The Iron Dragon's dragon-killing magic crystal swallows steel and iron, and is specially used to break sharp blades. The Water Dragon's dragon-killing magic crystal, with the help of the Water Dragon's power, instantly stirs up a storm. The Wood Dragon's dragon-killing magic crystal controls life. Earth Dragon, thick black thorns. The last one is the power of wind, Storm Dragon magic crystal. Absorb the storm, soar with the wind. After absorbing and refining the power of the remaining 5 magic crystals in one breath, Mobai instantly felt that the magic power in his body was several times more powerful. 8 elements of Dragon Slayer magic crystal, tut tut. Doesn't that mean that as long as the magic used by the opponent in the future is within the 8 powers of water, fire, wind, rock, wood, earth, thunder and iron, I can devour their magic power and transform it into my own power? Mobai couldn't help smacking his lips. Such a powerful force. Looking at the entire kingdom, his strength is enough to rank among the top wizards. Returning from the consciousness space to reality, Mobai still saw the vast expanse of mountains and rocks in front of him. Now, it's time to find the guild. Since I'm here, of course I have to join the Fairy Tale Guild. Standing up from the ground, Mobai stretched his body and was about to leave when his sidelight suddenly swept to a rocky area in the distance. In his sight was a short old man, probably not even as tall as Mobai's thighs. The old man had a Mediterranean hairstyle and was sitting leisurely on a rock drinking tea and resting. Little did he know that 2 hungry wolves had already appeared behind him. The hungry wolves showed their sharp claws and teeth, and their bodies leaned down slightly, ready to pounce and bite. "Uncle, be careful behind you!" Mobai shouted loudly from a distance subconsciously. However, the old man seemed not to hear it. He took a sip of the hot tea in the cup, his eyes narrowed into a slit, and his whole face was full of comfort. Is this old man hard of hearing? Mobai slapped his head. Before he could make the next move, 2 hungry wolves flew towards the old man. I thought it would be a bloody hunt. Mobai was even prepared to mourn for the old man. Just when the hungry wolves were less than half a meter away from the old man finally noticed something. He turned around slowly, looking calm. Then, in Mobai's horrified eyes, the old man's left fist suddenly expanded dozens of times, and he threw it out heavily, knocking the two wolves directly into the air with extremely fast speed and pressure. The old man smiled, revealing a mouthful of white teeth. Mobai swallowed his saliva, as if he remembered something, and the expression on his face gradually changed to ecstasy. The giant magic, and this hairstyle, this figure, there is no mistake. It's him. It's him. Chapter 3. Fairy Tale, President Makarov. Although this president is usually just an old man who is not serious and a little bit lustful, he is currently the most reliable person in Fairy Tale. His strength is even listed as one of the 10 holy wizards by the council. Mobai originally wanted to join the Fairy Tale Guild, but now he ran into President Makarov by chance. Luck is coming, and it cannot be stopped. Perhaps it just made up for his non-African physique in his previous life when he drew cards and got the guaranteed minimum and was crooked. When Makarov's arm returned to its normal size, Mobai was about to step forward to talk, but the old man walked towards him with a smile on his face. "Young man, thank you for your reminder just now. Ahem. Actually, I didn't help much." Mobai wanted to say something else, but Makarov showed an awkward smile on his face. "I seem to be lost. Do you know how to get out of here?" Puff. Mobai almost spit it out. Sure enough, everyone in Fairy Tale has an innate sense of relaxation. This sense of relaxation will not change with age and status. But then again, Mobai has been here for less than an hour, and he doesn't have a map in his hand. "You, a local, are asking me for directions." Seeing that Mobai didn't respond, Makarov blushed. "In that case, I won't bother you anymore, hee. I have to find the way back to the guild quickly, otherwise I don't know what those little guys will do." Wait. Makarov was about to randomly choose a lucky direction, but was stopped by Mobai. "Storm Dragon, wings." As Mobai murmured, magic power accumulated on his back, and gradually a pair of illusory wings appeared. Under Makarov's stunned eyes, Mobai gently grabbed his shoulders and flapped his wings to fly into the sky. The power of the Storm Dragon magic crystal that Mobai absorbed at the end was very special. It seems that Mobai cannot simply absorb air to restore his magic power. But as a compensation, it can give Mobai the ability to fly and spread his wings anytime and anywhere. Generally speaking, it is still a relatively convenient magic. Mobai smiled and said, "Although I don't know the way back, at least this way I can see more clearly." Makarov nodded with satisfaction. Well, nowadays, the young generation of wizards are so skilled that they can even fly. "Thank you, uncle." Mobai changed his words immediately. It's better to pretend that he doesn't know him in the current situation. After taking a casual glance at the surrounding scenery, Makarov said nonchalantly, "I just watched your battle. Although your magic power is very strong, remember to release it evenly, otherwise it will not be conducive to long-term attack and defense." "Of course, I am just expressing my opinion casually. You look about 18 or 19 years old. In terms of your own strength, it is already very strong to reach this level at your age. I just don't know what the result will be compared with the little brats in our guild." Hearing this, Mobai immediately thought of those familiar figures. Natsu, the fire dragon slayer wizard; Lucy, the rich star spirit girl who escaped from home; Gray, who would not fight unless he took off his clothes. And Mobai's favorite fairy queen, Urza. The adventure of this team was his youth. When Mobai thought that he was about to be with them in person, he couldn't suppress his excitement and unconsciously sped up again. Makarov pointed to the front and said, "See that big pine tree? Follow this direction and you will reach Magnolia." Magnolia. Yes, that's the town where our guild is located. It has been developing here for about 100 years. Makarov said proudly. Mobai also made up his mind. I sent him back to Fairy Tale, so it's not too much for him to pull me into the guild. Thinking of this, Mobai tentatively said, "Well, Uncle, I don't have a place to settle down yet. I wonder if I can." "Yes." "Ah." Mobai wanted to test Makarov's tone indirectly, but he agreed before he finished speaking. Makarov disagreed and continued. "The guild is a place to provide jobs for the little ghosts. When we officially arrive, whether you want to stay or not, I will respect your wishes. But believe me, you will fall in love with the guild. In addition, there will be an S-class wizard assessment in half a year, and your strength is also likely to be selected. But that's all for the future. I'll take you to visit the guild later. S-class wizard, the soldier test. If he could pass it, it would prove his strength to some extent, right?" Mobai was eager to find an opportunity to shine, and he couldn't hold back his excitement. He subconsciously cheered when he heard the exciting news. But he forgot that his hands were still holding Makarov's shoulders. "Ah!" As Mobai felt his hands were empty for no reason, a shrill scream came from under him. "Look down." Makarov's face was pale as if he had lost his soul, and he fell straight down like a kite with a broken string, with his 4 legs facing the sky. Mobai quickly dived down awkwardly. Only then did he grab Makarov's shoulders and fly again before he fell to the ground. "Ahem, sorry, sir. Don't get excited, fly steady. By the way, kid, I don't know your name yet." "Mobai." "Mobai, such a short name. It's not far after we pass the woods ahead." Half an hour later. After flying over the bustling streets and towns, under the guidance of Makarov, the two finally stopped in front of a towering building. "This is our guild fairy tale, Makarov wanted to say something, but his stomach suddenly churned, and he squatted against the wall and vomited. "Next time, fly steady. I can't stand it." The voice went in Mobai's left ear and out his right ear, and he didn't even think about it. At this moment, he was completely attracted by the guild in front of him. The house was not very tall or large, perhaps it could only be called a condensed castle, but the flag hanging in the center was particularly eye-catching. The guild emblem of fairy tale. Seeing Mobai's expression, Makarov wiped his mouth and introduced to Mobai proudly. "This is the Fairy Tale Guild, the home of a group of rebellious little devils. As for why it is called fairy tale, to be honest, we have no idea whether fairies really exist. After all, we have never seen them. Unknown mysteries represent eternal adventures. Mobai, as the president, I welcome you to Fairy Tale." Chapter 4. I'm back. Makarov was merciless and kicked the guild door open. "Well, you're welcome, come in and feel free." Makarov was about to tell Mobai to come in and sit down, but a wooden chair suddenly flew into his face. It made his nose bleed. Shouts came from inside. "Fire bastard, I've disliked you for a long time. You stripping pervert, I'll knock you down today." The magic power of ice and fire exploded from the center of the hall. Even though Mobai was at the door, he could still feel the intense atmosphere. Natsu, Gray. Within sight, two teenagers manipulated ice and fire magic to wrestle with each other. One was wrapped in a thick white scarf, and the other took off all his clothes on the upper body. Well, as you can see, everyone in the guild always likes to quarrel, so that it looks harmonious. Makarov wiped the blood from his nose, forced a smile and patiently explained to Mobai. What he didn't know was that Mobai already knew everyone here, and the love-hate relationship in the guild was commonplace. Fire Dragon's Claws. Ice Shape. Ice Wall. The boy wrapped in a white scarf was the Fire Dragon Slayer wizard Natsu, and his opponent was Gray, the Ice Shape wizard. The so-called ice shape is to release ice attribute energy to transform it into various shapes, such as various weapons used in battle, to attack. Perhaps it is due to the mutual restraint of fire and ice magic attributes. Except when the guild is united against the outside, the two will always fight from morning to night. Gray, clothes. The female wizard next to him reminded expressionlessly. I've long been accustomed to Gray's quirk. Gray was surprised and said, "Ah, when did I take it off?" Natsu didn't give Gray a chance to breathe, and kicked him away while he was stunned. A light flashed in the air. Mobai cast his eyes on Natsu, who had taken advantage of him, and found that he had a pair of shorts in his hand. As his fingers turned, the shorts kept spinning up and down. Wait, could this be? Mobai suddenly thought of something and looked at the other side. Sure enough. Gray stood up from the corner naked. He didn't cover his private parts at all, and walked around in front of everyone. Give me back my pants. Hey, come and get them. Natsu laughed wantonly. Ice style, Lancer. Gray gritted his teeth and directly released the weapon attack of the style magic. The ice spear shot forward. It accurately hit Elfman next to Natsu. Men, how old are you two? You keep fighting all day long. Aren't you annoying? None of your business. Take my fire dragon's iron fist. Natsu punched Elfman in the face. Elfman, who was beaten away, ran into someone else and knocked the pipe out of his mouth. Asshole, don't get in the way. You're not worth a single blow. That's enough. What are you arguing about? Whose slippers fell into my wine barrel? Damn it. Behave yourself. Men should prove their strength with their fists. Not long after. Everyone in the guild was fighting. It took only 1 or 2 minutes to make a mess. This is the fairy tale I'm familiar with. Mobai held back his laughter and watched with great interest. President, welcome back Tilda. A sweet female voice suddenly came from the side, which was out of tune with the noise of others. Mobai looked up and was instantly attracted by her grace. Marahe. Is this a newcomer? Hello Tilda. Marahe smiled and extended her hand to Mobai in a friendly manner. With her silver hair like a waterfall and a light pink long skirt, her every frown and smile fully showed the temperament of the guild's poster girl. She is indeed a super beauty who can be on the cover of Wizard Weekly. As if she noticed the stiff expression of Makarov beside Mobai, Marahe looked at the people who were still fighting behind her, smiled bitterly and said, "It seems that everyone is very energetic today. After the fight is over, everyone should go to work seriously." Pop. In the chaotic fight, someone threw a bottle of wine, hitting Marahe's head. Marahe was knocked unconscious. Mobai swallowed his saliva and stood there. At this moment, he could clearly sense that Makarov beside him was gathering a huge and terrifying magic power. A bunch of idiots, stop now. Makarov's roar spread throughout the whole city, meeting hall. Almost everyone stopped what they were doing and looked over at once. Except for Natsu and Gray who were still fighting in the corner. When everyone else kept quiet, the two continued to do their own thing, and their voices were particularly harsh. Can you put on your clothes before fighting with me? That thing is always shaking and it's annoying. You still have the nerve to say that. Who took my pants away? How do I know you're not wearing anything inside? This is intolerable. Makarov finally couldn't hold it back, and directly activated the magic power in his body to make his whole body huge. The shadow was projected on the ground, and the vision became dark. The two realized that something was wrong, and they looked up at the same time. Huh, President, when did you come back? Facing these two unrepentant villains, Makarov was not polite at all, raised his leg and kicked them down together. Simple and crude, and very useful. No, I don't dare. Until he heard a begging voice under his feet, Makarov returned to his original form and returned to Mobai, asking seriously. So, after knowing that the guild is full of such noisy guys, Mobai, are you still willing to join Fairy Tale? Yes. Mobai nodded without hesitation. Very good. Welcome to join us. Makarov called for 100 responses, and everyone seemed to have completely forgotten the noise just now, and all gathered around Mobai. I am the man Elfman, newcomer, and compete with me with fists right now. You look about the same age as Natsu and the others, what magic can you do? The newcomer brought back by the president must be extraordinary Tilda. Men and women pulled Mobai to ask questions, and were particularly affectionate. Everyone seemed to be familiar with each other, and there was no sign of just meeting each other. Mobai was able to escape only when Marajan approached with the magic emblem. This is the emblem of our guild. As long as you engrave it on a part of your body, you will officially join Fairy Tale Tilda. The emblem is a special magic symbol. Although the magic power is weak, it will not be washed off or rubbed off, unless it is erased by magic. Mobai smiled and unbuttoned his shirt. Such an important thing should be printed on the chest. Feeling the slight magic fluctuations coming from his body, Mobai gently stroked the emblem on his chest. The more he looked at it, the more he liked it. From now on, he officially became a member of Fairy Tale. Chapter 5. This is the guild's bulletin board. The job of a wizard is to complete various commissions on it and get rewards. Bringing Mobai to the side wall, Marajan introduced them to Mobai one by one. Different commissions have different difficulties and rewards. You can choose any job you want to complete. Just give me the commission tilde. After simply thanking Marajan, Mobai carefully checked the content posted above. D-level mission, patrol the streets of Magnolia at night, no special requirements, reward 3000 J. C-level mission, ignite the sacred fire of Anuba village, limited to fire wizards, reward 20,000 J. B-level mission, expedited, chase 2 night walkers of the Thieves Guild and take back the stolen magic crystal, no special requirements, reward 88,000 J. A-level mission, defeat the beast Vulcan of Kobo Mountain and obtain the top horn of the head of the King of Vulcan, no special requirements, reward 400,000 J. J is the universal currency of Fairy Tale, equivalent to berry in One Piece, or gold coins in other world novels. For the first time working, it is recommended to start with simple commissions tilde, Marajan suggested. Or, there are still many people resting in the guild today, and it feels too difficult, you can find everyone to team up and go to complete the task together tilde. Mobai is still hesitant. It's not that I can't find a job I like. But the commissions posted so far are too simple. The highest reward among the A-level commissions is just to conquer Vulcan. Mobai is naturally familiar with Vulcan. A kind of ape-like magical beast, it has been active in the Hakobe Snow Mountain for many years to attack travelers. It is agile and can be considered a tough opponent. But after all, they do not have magic power in their bodies. For some powerful wizards, they are just minions. Mobai made a calculation in his mind. Although I am a newcomer now, according to the previous experience, my strength should not be weak. At least some ordinary S-level tasks can still be competent. Unfortunately, due to the difficulty and danger of S-level tasks, it is necessary to obtain the approval of the president and pass the assessment, and personally grant the title of S-level wizard to be eligible to take the commission. Makarov also explained before that the assessment will be in half a year, and it is probably difficult to achieve in a short time. In that case, we can only choose to conquer Vulcan, the reward is not too small. Mobai was thinking, and was about to take off the commission sheet, but a female voice came from the door again. I heard that the president came back from the meeting of the council. And brought a newcomer. What a familiar voice, Mobai said secretly. Compared with the sweetness of Marajan, the tone of this voice has a bit more unquestionable boldness. Everyone's eyes gathered together. At the door, a beautiful woman in armor appeared here, and her long crimson hair was particularly dazzling in the sun. Urza. Oh my god, Urza is back. It's over, I haven't worked these days, and I will definitely be killed by her later. I'll be respectful first. Urza slowly walked into the hall and looked around. Suddenly there was silence. Everyone's heart was in their throat, and they turned their heads aside, afraid to look her in the eye. Kana, would normal people drink directly from a bucket? Bishida, if you want to dance, go out and dance. Wakaba, your cigarette ashes all over the floor, clean it up now. Take the cloth, all you can do is hang around on the bulletin board, get to work now. And you. All the wizards whose names were mentioned by Urza were frowning, but they didn't dare to refute, so they had to do it one by one. The biggest changes were Natsu and Gray. Although the two had just been punished by Makarov, they were ready to fight again. But when they heard Urza's voice, they immediately linked arms and stood shoulder to shoulder and became close brothers. Natsu, Gray, you should have gotten along well during my absence, right? Urza asked. Of course, we are the closest family. Yes, we got along very well today, and there was absolutely no fighting. Looking at the scene in front of him, Mobai couldn't help but complain in his heart. As expected of the Fairy Queen, not only is she powerful, but she is also a member of the Discipline Committee. After finding out almost all the problems of the entire guild, Urza approached Mobai. You are the newcomer Mobai brought by the president, right? I am Urza, you can always come to me if you have any questions. These two simple sentences made Mobai feel quite important. Thank you. Aluza shook her head gently. You're welcome. Since this is your first mission, it's better to find someone to go with you. As it happens, my last job has been completed. When you choose the commission, I will team up with you. Huh. The voice fell into the crowd. The guild members looked at each other and cast sympathetic eyes on Mobai. It's so pitiful. He was tortured by Urza right after joining the guild. Do you think Mobai would be tempted by Urza because she is beautiful, and then happily go on a mission together? If you dare to think so, you will be punished. I just hope that after this mission, he will not break down and cry and quit the guild. I still have to find a chance to persuade him to refuse tactfully. The five senses of the Dragon Slayer are particularly sharp, and the whispers are very clear in Mobai's ears, making him laugh and cry. Urza, how can she be so scary? When I first watched Fairy Tail, my favorite character was the Fairy Queen. Although she is one of the strongest S-class wizards in the guild, she is handsome and bold, and has a strong leadership temperament. But often deep in the hearts of such girls, there is a little-known side, which is only shown to the closest people. Back to reality, Mobai took 2 steps forward and took the commission directly. I choose the A-level mission, to defeat Vulcan. Uproar. The crowd wanted to say something, but they were frightened by Urza's look and dared not move. I chose the A-level for the first commission. I admire your courage, but don't worry, even if you are in danger, I will take you back to the guild safely. Urza turned around and said to Mobai. Actually, I'm not that bad. Mobai replied weakly. Urza smiled and patted Mobai's shoulder gently. I'm not saying you're weak, I just want to protect you. Give the order to Mira for registration, and we'll set off now. Before Mobai could react, he suddenly felt an unknown force on his neck. Then his whole head was brought down, and his vision gradually became dark. Puff. Urza is accustomed to burying other people's heads in her chest. But can you take off the armor first next time? This thing is really hard. What's the difference between hitting a stone? Although this is considered physical intimacy. However, through the tough armor, Mobai didn't take advantage of Urza at all, so he had to cover his forehead that was hurt by the pressure and go to Mirajan to register. Everyone, we're leaving first. Until the 2 figures disappeared in front of the door. In an instant, the hall resumed the noise just now. Macau, I remember that you were captured by Vulcan last time and became his wife, right? The first half is true, but what about the second half? With Urza here, they shouldn't have much trouble. Are you kidding? The commission is to get the head of the King of Vulcan, which is incomparable to ordinary Vulcans. In addition, it is Mount Hako. What if there is a blizzard? Perhaps Urza can complete it alone, but if she brings a newcomer? Oh, don't worry too much. In the chaos, the old man's voice was suddenly heard, and Makarov was sitting leisurely at the front desk, as usual, casual and uninhibited. President. Makarov said casually, don't worry about getting into danger, this new member is very strong. Is that so? But when Urza came back just now, where did you go, President? Did you hide because you were afraid of being scolded by her? Shut up. Chapter 6. Kobo Mountain. After just a few dozen miles in the carriage, the snow-covered mountains were in front of us. Mobai couldn't help but shudder. Urza looked ahead and said thoughtfully, "After crossing this snow slope, we will reach the area where Vulcan often appears. While the weather is not bad now, we should find the king of Vulcan as soon as possible." Mobai moved forward step by step. Although the weather was still clear, the snow covered his entire feet. Be careful not to step on empty air or slip," Urza kept reminding. Mobai followed behind her with a bitter smile. "I am also a wizard, don't think of me as a child, right?" "Well, indeed, but what is your magic?" Urza asked. "Well, you will know when we fight later." Mobai kept it a secret. But to be honest, he was still a little excited. As they went deeper into the snow, the road became steeper and the snow layer gradually thickened, covering their ankles. Mobai suddenly had an idea. "I remember that I have a water-attributed Dragon Slayer crystal in my body. Maybe eating the snow on the ground can also increase my magic power." Mobai made a snowball and threw it directly into his mouth. As the snowball melted in his mouth with a cool feeling, his energy was indeed restored, but it was pitifully small. It was nothing compared to the energy obtained from swallowing rocks before. As Mobai was thinking, Urza beside him suddenly stretched out her arm to block him. "There is a Vulcan hidden on the hill at 1 o'clock. Ah!" As soon as Urza finished speaking, a group of white ape-like monsters swooped down from it and rushed towards the two of them. It was the Vulcan they wanted to attack. Vulcans have lived in the Kobo Mountain for many years, and their body structure has long been adapted to this place. In the snow, they are even faster, and in a blink of an eye, they meet Mobai and the others. Roughly estimated, there are more than 30 of them. What makes Mobai embarrassed is that these Vulcans seem to have no interest in him. Instead, they all surround Urza, and their lecherous eyes sweep over Urza's body unscrupulously. Change clothes. Heavenly wheel armor. Urza does not hesitate at all. As the magic circle under her body rotates, the original armor on her body is replaced instantly. Ah! After changing clothes, Urza's snow-white skin is more exposed, and the Vulcans immediately scream with excitement. As one of the S-class wizards of fairy tale, Urza is best at disguise magic. She adjusts the armor and offensive and defensive methods through different battles. Finally, she wins with abundant magic power and extraordinary physical skills. The sky wheel armor used at this moment is made of steel armor, and there are 4 steel wings on the back. It is most suitable for dealing with a large number of enemies. Urza held the sword in both hands, and as the magic power was continuously released, more than a dozen sharp swords appeared out of thin air around her. Sky Wheel Dizzy Sword. The sharp sword was cast, and the closest Vulcan was the first to bear the brunt. His body was directly pierced, and he fell in the snow. Vulcans are creatures that are both wretched and love to bully the weak and fear the strong. Seeing that their companions were killed so easily, they couldn't help but collectively step back a few steps. This woman is so fierce. In contrast, the person next to her seems to have not made a move until now. Maybe he is just a muggle who can't do magic. The leading Vulcan thought so, and waved to the remaining dozen companions behind him, screaming a few times. Then he actually rushed directly towards Mobai. Damn it! Aware of the Vulcan's movements, Urza waved her swords and directly chopped down the 2 Vulcans in front of her, preparing to support Mobai. 4 more gathered beside her. "Mobai, be careful." Unable to get away quickly, Urza had to shout to the distance. However, Mobai still chose to stay where he was, allowing the dozen Vulcans to crawl quickly in front of him, while he secretly observed their positions. Almost all in one line. Magic power continued to accumulate in his body. Mobai carefully felt the fluctuations of magic power, which flowed from his abdomen to his throat, and his cheeks bulged bigger and bigger. Just as Vulcan stomped hard with his feet and prepared to attack in the air, a hot breath suddenly broke out. The roar of the fire dragon. Mobi's dragon-killing power hit the Vulcan group, and the scorching and majestic flames enveloped all the Vulcans, causing them to scream one after another. They didn't even have a chance to escape, and their bodies were burned to charcoal. They probably never dreamed that the guy they regarded as a muggle could breathe fire. Aluza, who was standing by, was also stunned by what was happening in front of her. This is Fire Dragon Slayer magic. She was very familiar with this attack method, which was almost the same as Natsu's. Besides Natsu, are there other Fire Dragon Slayers? Could it be that Mobi also learned magic from the Fire Dragon? The current crisis has not been completely resolved. Urza can't afford to be distracted and turns to deal with Vulcan on her side. However, since she has learned that Mobi's powerful strength does not need her protection, Urza is more able to fight. After a minute, only 2 people were left standing. Urza looked around at the traces of Mobi's battle. The white snow that originally covered the old snow had been completely melted by the raging flames, revealing the bare mountain terrain. This destructive power, I'm afraid it won't be weaker than Natsu's. Aluza had a basic judgment of Mobi in her heart. After finishing his own battle, Mobi also slowly walked towards Urza. Aluza tilted her head and showed an interested smile. I really underestimated you at the beginning. It seems that the president has brought us a new dragon slayer. However, you and Natsu are both fire dragon slayers. Could it be that you were also raised by a dragon and can replenish magic power by swallowing fire? Mobi scratched his head. That's a bit hard to say. Simply put, I implanted some rare dragon slayer magic crystals into my body, and obtained dragon slayer magic. I have never seen a dragon, but I can indeed feed on fire. Maybe, I just happen to have the same attributes as Natsu. Aluza nodded slightly disappointed. She had heard from Natsu a long time ago that dragon-slaying magic was taught by the dragon himself. But one day, the fire dragon that raised him suddenly disappeared, and there has been no news since then. Mobi's situation did not seem to provide him with any clues. Aluza naturally did not know that Mobi had already known everything through the god's perspective. The reason why he did not reveal it was because he had just joined the guild and the time was not yet ripe. On the exposed snow-capped rock ground, the bodies of Vulcan were scattered all over the place, and all of this was done by the 2 wizards who were heading deep into the snow-capped mountains. Time passed by minute. The sunlight that was originally faintly felt was quietly covered by clouds, and grains of snow slowly fell. Chapter 7. By the way, this Hawkby mountain is big enough. We have been walking for so long. Mobi just finished speaking. Urza beside him suddenly stopped and looked into the distance, and said vigilantly. Be careful, the spherical ice cave in front is the nest of Vulcan, and the number may be several times that of the previous encounter. In addition, a few Vulcans have magic power and can use receiving magic, which will make the battle very difficult. And we have to face the King of Vulcan. According to rumors, the magic power of the King of Vulcan is particularly strong, even not weaker than that of ordinary wizards. There is also a saying that the King of Vulcan can control the weather here, and when angry, he can even summon a blizzard to bury the warriors who come to attack directly. In short, this will be an extremely dangerous opponent. Aluza's expression was serious, and her tone revealed her fear of the King of Vulcan. If it is so dangerous, why is it only an A-level mission? Mobi was puzzled. Because the client is only willing to pay 400,000 J and has been reluctant to increase the reward, this commission has been posted in the guild and no one is interested. I originally wanted to come here alone to solve it, but I didn't expect that you would also take a fancy to this commission. Urza explained. Mobi was quite speechless. Ah, what a ridiculous reason. Stop. Urza suddenly increased her voice and stared at the sky in the distance. The clouds there don't look right, and there seems to be a fluctuation of magic power. In just a few seconds, the 2 suddenly felt a strong wind, snowflakes rolled up, and even the balance of the body was difficult to maintain. In the sky, dark clouds gathered quietly, which was disturbing. Catch me. Urza suddenly stabbed the sword deep into the ground and shouted to Mobai. Mobai turned his head slightly and stared at the direction of the storm with sharp eyes. Although his vision gradually dimmed, he still found a vague black shadow in the distance, which was slowly moving towards him. Suddenly, a huge funnel-shaped cloud column dropped from the clouds, connecting the sky and the earth. It rotated at an astonishing speed, carrying the power that seemed to destroy everything. Tornado. A tornado blowing on a snowy mountain. Is this reasonable? It's the king of Vulcan. Although Mount Hawkby is covered with ice and snow all year round, there has never been such an abnormal phenomenon. Urza speculated with a solemn expression. It seems that the beast has already noticed that we will threaten it and wants to take the initiative. Mobai said while checking the surrounding environment. There were snow hills all around. And Urza and he happened to be in the lowest part of the terrain. Not only that, at the horizon in all directions, a huge monster gathered in a black mass at some point. It's Vulcan. In terms of size, it is much larger than the one encountered before. The number is also more amazing. These beasts are not stupid. They know how to use the terrain to set up an ambush. Seeing the encirclement shrinking and the tornado gradually approaching, Mobai finally saw the giant Vulcan shaking its head in the air in front of him. It seems that it is the king of Vulcan, the initiator of summoning the tornado. Ah! The king of Vulcan let out a monkey cry, and the Vulcan minions that were originally advancing together suddenly stopped moving forward and stood at the highest point of the snow slope. The tornado was mixed in the encirclement, constantly sending death signals to Mobai and Urza. It seems that the king of Vulcan wants to trap us to death. There are slopes all around, and it will be very difficult to break through. Change clothes. While analyzing the situation, Urza chose the purgatory armor with stronger close combat capabilities. She vowed to fight her way out. The defense on the left is the weakest, let's break out from there. Follow me, Mobai. Arusa's constant urging came into his ears. Mobai's eyes were always on the tornado that was getting bigger and closer, and a strange light flashed in his eyes. Maybe, I have a way to deal with that thing. What do you want to do? Mobai ignored Urza's question this time. His eyes were like torches, and then he took a deep breath in the direction of the tornado. Ah! The king of Vulcan saw Mobai's abnormal behavior of still standing there, and thought he was scared silly by the tornado, and let out a mocking roar. But the next second, it couldn't laugh anymore. Under the eyes of dozens of Vulcans, the tornado that originally carried a monstrous destructive force, now seemed to be controlled by humans. It turned into a bunch of concentrated energy beams, constantly flowing into Mobai's mouth. Super strong suction, incredible. Seeing the power decreasing, the king of Vulcan hurriedly urged the magic power in his body to strengthen the tornado. As the magic power continued to decrease, the tornado suddenly exploded with a stronger momentum, and the sound waves were shocking. It even directly swept several Vulcan minions that were close to it, and their bodies were torn apart in an instant. Seeing this, Mobai also exerted a little force and increased the frequency of inhalation. The king of Vulcan finally realized that something was wrong. The human in front of him had not used any magic, but he had eaten all the tornadoes that he had summoned with all his strength. As the magic power continued to be consumed and fatigue invaded, the two ape arms of the king of Vulcan continued to tremble, and the momentum of the tornado weakened. Until the last ray of storm energy rushed to the direction of Mobai, allowing it to be absorbed. Urza's beautiful eyes also flashed with confusion and shock. You, absorb the storm into your body. Aren't you the fire dragon slayer? The last bit of magic power in the king of Vulcan's body was finally drained, and he lay powerlessly on the snow slope, gasping for breath. On the other hand, Mobai was full of energy, and his magic power was even more abundant than when they just met. Mobai smiled confidently at Urza. Power will surge out after eating it. We'll talk about these things later. Next, it's time for us to fight back. The power of the storm flowed in his body, and Mobai could feel that it was a huge power he had never had before, far exceeding the magic power he had when fighting against Rhino. What a pity, I thought the storm dragon could recover its magic power by eating air, but I didn't expect it to only swallow the storm. But at least, it's enough to deal with the current situation. The wings slowly emerged from behind, and Mobai gently lowered his center of gravity. The body rushed out like an arrow from a string. In the eyes of the Vulcan King, because Mobai's body moved too fast, he could not detect it at all, and could only see the snowflakes raised during the flash attack. The Vulcan King was completely panicked, but he didn't know that Mobai had already come behind him. Storm Dragon's Wing Attack. When Mobai's figure was clear, the mountain-like body of the Vulcan King had already fallen, splashing large snow waves. The nearby Vulcan minions were horrified to find that the sharp horns on their leader's head were cut off. Mobai's teammate, Urza, was also surprised. It's too fast. Even if it were me, I wouldn't be able to kill the Vulcan King and get his sharp horns at the same time. After brushing off the snow on his body, Mobai casually played with the sharp horns in his hand. Your boss is dead. If you don't want to end up like him, you'd better disappear from my sight immediately. When the tree falls, the monkeys scatter. Amidst the wailing of Vulcan, Mobai slowly returned to Urza, raised the sharp horn in his hand, and smiled a brilliant smile of victory. Chapter 8. In the evening, the sun began to slowly set, and the sky was dyed orange-red. As the outline gradually blurred, the light gradually softened. Mobai and Urza had already walked out of Kobo Mountain. Looking at the gradually darkening sky, they decided to continue their journey tomorrow. Bonfire. 2 wooden sticks with fish were roasted on it, crackling and gradually exuding fragrance. Mobai was looking forward to this dinner. But the strange eyes of his teammates next to him always stayed on him, making him feel uncomfortable. Cough cough. Mobai coughed twice tactically, and directly grabbed the half-cooked fish and put it into his mouth. The taste was fishy and astringent. But Mobai not only did not spit it out, but instead accelerated the speed of biting. Soon, a fish was eaten clean. Noticed that Urza was still looking at him with that look. Mobai finally couldn't help it. Big sister, you have been staring at my face since just now. Is there any magic text on it? No, I'm just curious about how much strength you have hidden. You have seen them all. Fire Dragon Slayer, Storm Dragon Slayer. By the way, he can fly. What else? Arusa's eyes never moved, always believing that Mobai had hidden his strength. Mobai felt uneasy when he was looked at. After a while, then a few more words came out of his mouth. And Iron Dragon Slayer magic. And what else? And Thunder Dragon. And what else? And water, wood, rock, earth. That's all. That's all. Mobai said helplessly, spreading his hands. I thought Urza would question it, but I didn't expect her to laugh out loud. 8 Dragon Slayer powers. It seems that I really underestimated you. A-level missions like this are too easy for you. Mobai shrugged and didn't comment. I heard you say before that in addition to Natsu, there is another Iron Dragon Slayer named Gajil in the guild. As a veteran, Mobai is naturally familiar with Gajil. And now I deliberately raised this question to sort out the timeline and see what will happen next. Urza said, Gajil. Speaking of which, he was not a member of our guild not long ago, but from another hostile guild, Phantom Ruler. After we went to war with Phantom Ruler, Gajil directly destroyed the guild with his Dragon Slayer ability. What you see now is the rebuilt fairy tale. But according to the president's meaning, since he is already a companion, the past will not be pursued. During this period of time, Gajil has been trying his best to integrate into us. Is that so? Mobai stroked his chin and thought. After listening to Urza's story, he also had a general idea of the time here. Mobai recalled the scene when Makarov just brought him back to the guild this morning. He vaguely remembered that there seemed to be a young man in a black coat on the second floor who had been watching the noise of the crowd, but he didn't say a word from beginning to end. That must be the grandson of the president, the Thunder Dragon Slayer Laxus. It seems he is still in the guild. I remember that he is still a reckless man who only pursues strength. It won't be long before he will start a civil war because he can't tolerate the current slackness of the guild. If we calculate according to this period, it is after the war with the ghost and before the civil war. Thinking of this, Mobai's pupils suddenly dilated and his body shook twice. At this moment, he finally sorted out the timeline and understood what time it was now. What's wrong? Are you feeling unwell? Urza asked with concern. However, Mobai quickly regained his composure, smiled lightly and said it was nothing, and then changed the subject. Rest early, I'll keep watch. Aluza nodded. Okay, if you feel tired, you can call me to take over at any time. You have consumed a lot of magic power today. Don't forget that I am a dragon slayer. Compared with the swallowing storm, the magic power consumed is nothing. Mobai rolled his eyes and said. The waning moon hangs on the phoenix tree. The sound of the clock is interrupted and people are quiet. Tilting his head to look at his side, Urza is sleeping peacefully, and her breathing is gradually becoming even. Mobai got up and took off his coat, gently covering her. After the war with Phantom, before the fairy tale civil war. If nothing unexpected happens, the next thing is the Tower of Paradise incident. You still have to pick up the courage to face the pain of the past. But now I am by your side, I won't let you suffer that kind of grievance. The next morning. In the Fairy Tale Guild. President, Urza and Mobai haven't come back yet. The Hakob mountain is not close to Magnolia, and they are going to the deepest part. How can they come so fast? But why are you in such a hurry? I bet 2000 J with Kana. They will come back today. Macau, you are an old member. Can you set an example for the children? By the way, where is Kana? I want to bet 20,000 J. We are back. While the two were discussing, a familiar voice suddenly sounded outside the house. Then the door was kicked open. Everyone's attention was attracted together. Dang! Urza punched Mobai on the top of her head. Did you open the door with your foot? Sorry, I won't dare to do it next time. Mobai rubbed his head that was hit and hurt, and cursed President Makarov in his heart. He learned this from him. Seeing the two return, the people in the guild who were originally quarreling with each other immediately gathered around. How was the work going? You came back so soon, you must have completed the commission, right? I bet 500 J, you will definitely return victorious today. And me, I bet 2000. But how did you deal with the King of Vulcan? I heard that the big guy is extremely dangerous. With Urza here, how could we fail? The heated discussion made Mobai overwhelmed. It went well. The client was the blacksmith in Harjanport. Although the reward was only 400,000 J, he used the remaining sharp corner materials to help Urza reinforce her armor, which was an unexpected gain. As that's so, it is worthy of being the most dangerous A-level mission. After barely answering everyone's questions, Mobai finally squeezed to the front desk. Only then did he discover Makarov in tears. President, what's wrong with you? You came back too early, I didn't have time to bet with Kana. After a while, everyone sat together and listened to Urza's description of the whole process of the commission. But without exception, their mouths opened into an, oh, shape. What? Did I hear you wrong? You mean, you almost didn't do anything during this work, and Mobai did it all by himself? That's right, including the final battle against the King of Vulcan, it was all Mobai who defeated him alone. Urza smiled. The members of the guild knew that she couldn't joke about such things. All looked at the newcomer who had just reported yesterday with surprised eyes. Urza added, in terms of strength alone, Mobai is not inferior to me, at least he has reached the level of an S-class wizard. S-class wizard. At least. Everyone was surprised again. They only heard from the president yesterday that Mobai was very strong. But they didn't expect that under his simple and easy-going appearance, there was such a domineering and fierce side. Mobai seemed to be nonchalant. Ahem, it was just luck. Mira, give me a cappuccino. Chapter 9. As for the reward, the blacksmith has already helped me reinforce the armor, Mobai. All 400,000 J are yours. Urza suddenly said. Well, since we are teaming up, let's split the reward equally, right? Seeing that Urza still wanted to insist, Mobai added, no need to be so polite, we can continue to team up in the future. If I slack off one day, I will split your share equally as usual. I really can't do anything about you. Urza chuckled and buried Mobai's head in her chest again. As expected, Mobai hit the hard armor again. So hard. Mobai cried out in pain in his heart, unable to say anything. He thought that one day he would let Urza do this without armor. I don't believe it will be so hard by then. Urza suddenly said, by the way, Lucy found me just now and invited me to relax at the resort hotel. You should have time too, right? Vacation. Mobai instantly became alert. It seems that the time he had guessed before was correct. It was when Urza was at the seaside resort that her former companions brought her to the Paradise Tower again. The Paradise Tower was the place that caused her the most pain. Okay. Mobai naturally couldn't let Urza bear all this alone, so he readily agreed. Hey Mobai, I heard that you are quite strong, do you want to compete with me? I'm excited. Hearing someone calling him from behind, Mobai looked back, but there was no one in sight. However, a scream came from above his head. On the other hand, Urza raised her arm slightly next to him. Looking up along her arm, he found that Natsu had been slapped away by her and embedded in the ceiling. Don't fight all day, Natsu. Pack your luggage, we're going on vacation now. Happy, remember to pick him down from the ceiling. Gray, get dressed. Looking at Urza, who had returned to her disciplinary committee appearance before leaving. Mobai smiled awkwardly and happened to meet Lucy's eyes next to him. Hello, my name is Lucy, I'm a celestial mage, and I just joined the guild not long ago. Mobai extended his hand to Lucy in a friendly manner. Mobai, please take care of me. Before he came here, Urza, Lucy, Gray, Natsu and his flying cat partner Happy formed the strongest team in the entire guild. At the same time, they also formed Mobai's youth. After more than a day of bumpy ride, the 5 people and 1 cat finally arrived at the resort the next morning. After Lucy showed the VIP ticket for 4 people, the etiquette lady at the front desk immediately called the waiter to help. As for Mobai's share, Urza insisted that she should pay for it, and Mobai naturally couldn't resist her. Looking at the thin-armed waiter, Mobai couldn't help asking, my 2 bags are very heavy, are you sure you can carry them? No problem, this is what I should do. First, sir. As soon as he took the bag from Mobai, the waiter's face immediately became ferocious, and his waist bent down uncontrollably. Bang! The bag fell heavily to the ground. The waiter was so scared that his face turned pale, and he apologized to Mobai repeatedly. It's only been 2 days since he started working, and there was a problem. I'm afraid he will be scolded by his boss. Mobai waved his hand to indicate that it was okay. Forget it, I'll do it myself. This move attracted the attention of Lucy next to him. Lucy couldn't help asking, what did you bring, Mobai? It's so heavy, it can't be 2 stones. How do you know? Hey. In Lucy's doubtful eyes, Mobai opened the 2 bags as if nothing had happened. Inside were 2 square rocks. The whole bag was stuffed full. Lucy's face was full of black lines, and she was speechless. No, you really brought 2 stones. Backup food, Mobai said. Urza explained beside her, he is a dragon slayer like Natsu. Lucy's face looked better after hearing this. Only the guy who helped Mobai move things just now was still doubting his life. The rooms of several people were on the 11th floor, and the scenery and lighting were pretty good. After unloading the luggage, Natsu clamored to go to the beach to have fun. Except for Urza who said she wanted to rest, the others were happy. Gray was immediately elated. Ah tilde tilde sunshine, beach tilde I can finally take off my clothes without any scruples tilde tilde. Gray, you can take off your shirt, but keep your underwear on. Ah, when did I take it off? Why did I come out to play with this naked pervert? It just so happens that Urza is not here, flame soul. Let's have a good fight today. I'm on fire. Stop fighting. Hey. Without Urza's control, Gray and Natsu started fighting again. Looking at Lucis' eyes looking at him for help, Mobai could only shrug. Indicated that he had no other choice. That's it. It lasted until the sun set. Mobai looked at the golden clouds in the sky and muttered to himself, it's almost time. Urza's former companions will be here soon, right? But he looked at Natsu and Gray who had been fighting next to him for an afternoon. At this time, both of them were beaten to death, and became two pigs with bruised noses and swollen faces. Mobai sighed helplessly. It seems that we have to drag them back to the hotel first. Until these two idiots are settled. Lucy and Happy also returned to their room. Standing alone in the hotel corridor, Mobai did not return to his residence, but walked to the deepest part of the corridor and stopped in front of the door at the end. This is Urza's room. According to the original plot, her old friend will show up tonight and take her away. We have to find a way to protect her. Mobai took a deep breath and walked forward and knocked on the door gently. Chapter 10. Inside the house. Knock, knock. Aluza, who was enjoying the sun on the balcony lounge chair, suddenly woke up and looked around blankly. Did I fall asleep? Recalling the nightmare just now, she returned to the purgatory of her childhood. Urza couldn't stop her palpitations. Knock, knock. The knock on the door sounded again. Wiping the cold sweat on her forehead, Urza took a breath and opened the door. Mobai. Mobai smiled and suggested, let's go outside for a walk. I heard that the night view of the beach here is beautiful. Okay, wait for me Tilda. Aluza agreed readily, and a light came out of her body. She resumed her usual armor dress. But she found that Mobai was looking at her with a weird look at this time. What's wrong? Mobai asked, Sister, don't you think this is strange? Who would walk on the beach wearing armor and carrying a sword? After hearing this, Urza became a little embarrassed for a moment. Armor can make me feel more at ease. Are you worried? Mobai asked. Urza, who has always been generous, seemed to be hesitant at this moment. Mobai saw this and did not ask too much. He naturally knew that Urza was only strong on the surface at this moment, but she was extremely insecure in her heart. When the two arrived at the beach again, the moon was already shining in the sky. The tourists were almost gone, and there were only a few dim lights on in the vast open space. Urza turned her head helplessly and asked, Is this the beautiful night view you mentioned? Ahem, I just heard about it, it seems I was deceived. Mobai smiled awkwardly and made up a random excuse to get away with it. He had other intentions. The main purpose of asking Urza out was to protect her. At the same time, a ship suddenly sailed on the sea in the distance, and the melodious sound of the flute floated by. Mobai immediately noticed it, and immediately narrowed his eyes and stared at the movement on the ship. Is it coming? However, Urza at this moment did not find anything unusual, and suggested. However, let's find a bright place. Mobai shook his head gently and pointed his finger into the distance. Do you see that ship? Urza looked in the direction. Although the light was not good, she could still see the ship parked on the shore. 4 people in cloaks slowly appeared from above and were walking towards them. Magical fluctuations were faintly spreading. Urza also realized that something seemed wrong, and her right hand instinctively touched the hilt of her sword. Perhaps, they are coming for you, Mobai said softly. Urza was startled. Me. The 4 figures were getting closer and closer. Seeing Urza's puzzled look, Mobai did not explain too much and directly protected her behind him. The other party walked to about 50 meters away. The cloaked man on the far right suddenly raised his arm, and a beam of red light was printed on Mobi's brow. Without waiting for Urza to react, dense guns and bullets rumbled over Mobi. Skin of steel. The smoke and dust dissipated, and Mobi activated the power of the Iron Dragon at the last moment. At this moment, his skin was dark, as if he was wearing a layer of iron armor, and he was unscathed. Urza breathed a sigh of relief. Stay here and don't move. I'll go check it out. After saying this, Mobi's body was like lightning. Instantly, he shuttled behind the cloaked man who had just attacked him. The powerful electric current gathered from his fists and hit the other person's back heavily. Thunder Dragon Jaw. A scream came from under him. Under the strong stimulation of thunder and lightning, even the other 3 people next to him felt slightly paralyzed. Wally. The other cloaked man shouted the name of his fallen companion and quietly took out a stack of magic cards from his body, but suddenly felt a storm coming in front of him. It stung his face and hurt. Why is the wind blowing? No, this is that guy's magic. When he reacted, he suddenly found that his hands were empty. The cards had been torn into pieces by the strong wind. On the other side, as Mobi took a deep breath, the power of the storm burst out from his chest. It gathered to the top at the moment of opening his mouth and suddenly exploded. Storm Dragon's Roar. Take advantage of the gap when Mobi releases magic. Another cloaked man flashed to the side and pulled out a long whip from his waist. Be tied up obediently, meowed Tilda. The long whip snaked forward, and it was about to bind Mobi. Wood Dragon's Roots Entangle. Mobi suddenly freed his left hand and swung it at him. As his wrist turned, a wood dragon grew out of thin air under the cloaked man. Thick vines. The cloaked man had to retract his whip and concentrate his magic power on his feet. As the magic power continued to bombard the vines became more and more lush and strong, constantly climbing up from the ground, until they tied up the cloaked man tightly and made him unable to move. After getting rid of 3 people in one breath, Mobi looked into the distance and was about to take the next step. Finally, the tall cloaked man suddenly exuded a strange magic power. Mobi's head sank, his vision became dim, and his hearing also decreased. It was as if the whole person was isolated from the world and the mute button was pressed. Dark moment. In a blur, the tall cloaked man suddenly appeared behind Mobi, but Mobi was still groping forward and never looked back. Purple-black magic power gathered from his hands. Aiming at Mobi's head, the cloaked man's palm suddenly hit out, but at the moment of contact, Mobi's figure disappeared instantly. Sensing something was wrong, the cloaked man hurriedly withdrew his magic power, but Mobi's calm voice came to his ears. Sorry, my 5 senses are stronger than those of ordinary dragon slayers. Fire Dragon's Iron Fist. The flames shone, and the fire illuminated a large area of the beach. The exploding fire fist landed on the cloaked man's abdomen and was blown away by the huge magic power. Only then did his vision and hearing return to normal. At this point, after taking action to deal with the last cloaked man, Mobi wiped off the sand on his trouser legs and breathed a sigh of relief. How could it be? The cloaked man entangled by the wood dragon's whiskers struggled desperately, trying to use magic to break free. The vitality of the wood whiskers became even stronger, until they crawled all over his body. Seeing that his magic power was about to be exhausted, the cloaked man finally shouted hysterically. Arusa, kill us. It was a female voice. You are. Ever since Mobi started fighting with the 4 people, Urza had a vague sense of familiarity with them. At this moment, she finally approached the girl who was talking and took off her cloak. Am I, Miliana? Why is it you? Under the disguise, it was the face of an old friend with tears streaming down her face. Urza's heart trembled, and the past scenes came to her mind. Miliana had already snorted softly, gritted her teeth to stop the tears, turned her face aside, and ignored Urza. Where have you been all these years? Of course, I lived well in the Tower of Paradise, sister. Hearing the voice behind her, Urza looked back, and the other two cloaked people who were knocked down by Mobai also showed their faces. Wally, Shu, you. Seeing that the two cloaked people still wanted to approach Urza, Mobai stood between them expressionlessly. After seeing Mobai's terrifying strength, Shu knew that he could not compete with him at all, and laughed sadly. Sister is living the life she wanted, with such a powerful companion willing to stand in front of her. No wonder she left us behind. Be careful with your words, Mobai reminded coldly. No, it's not like that. Urza waved her hands desperately. It's Jelal. It's ridiculous. We have been forced to this extent by you. Shu wanted to say something else, but a fist the size of a sandbag suddenly swung at him and stopped in front of him. The wind from the fist blew up a few strands of hair on the back of his head. Although it did not contain any magic power, it could be said to be zero damage. Shu smelled a trace of extremely dangerous breath from it, and turned his head stiffly, and saw Mobai's expressionless face. Be careful with your words. I don't want to remind you again next time. Urza opened her mouth to say something, but finally kept silent. The beach fell into a dead silence. After a long time, Shu suddenly felt someone patting his shoulder. Simon. Looking back, the person who spoke was the last cloaked man who had just cast Dark Moment to reduce the 5 senses but was killed by Mobai with a punch. Arusa didn't lie. It was indeed Jelal who had been deceiving us. Simon slowly stood up and said. What? Shu was surprised. Under the focus of everyone's eyes, the cloaked man finally took off his hood and looked at Urza with deep eyes. Simon, you are all still alive. Seeing Urza recognize the last old friend, Mobai gently raised his hand and removed the wooden dragon beard that bound Miliana, and then walked to the center of the 5 people and said. Maybe there is some misunderstanding. It just so happens that now is a good opportunity to explain it clearly. However, if you still intend to hurt Urza, I will not hold back like I did just now. Chapter 11. Simon was about to tell the story. Urza walked to Mobai and paused, forcing a smile and spoke first. When we were walking just now, you asked me if I was worried. Just this afternoon, I dreamed that I returned to my childhood and was taken to the Tower of Paradise to do hard labor and be a living sacrifice. That was the time I least wanted to recall. Mobai waved his hand and interrupted her before she finished speaking. I don't want to tear open your scars. Otherwise, let's listen to what this big guy has to say first. Urza did not compromise this time and shook her head firmly. No need, you will know these things sooner or later. Alas. Mobai looked like he really couldn't do anything to you. This fairy queen is so stubborn sometimes that it makes people feel distressed. Urza recalled for a moment, closed her eyes, and recounted the most painful past. 10 years ago, a cult that believed in black magic captured countless laborers from nearby towns. Their purpose was to build the Tower of Paradise and complete a ritual to resurrect the dead. After the Tower of Paradise was completed, these laborers would become sacrifices to start the ritual. I was one of them at the time, and you see Miliana, Wally, Simon, and Shu now. We were all slaves there. And, there was Jelal. When Urza mentioned Jalal's name again, her voice suddenly trembled. After a long while, she finally continued. I couldn't stand that kind of inhumane abuse, so I called on everyone to fight for freedom, but I failed in the end. In order to save me, Jelal was captured by the guards. Later, we finally rioted together and defeated all the prison guards, but the magic soldiers followed. Just as we were about to fail again, Grandpa Rob suddenly stepped forward to resist the magic soldiers, artillery fire, but he sacrificed himself to protect me. It was then that I finally understood magic. When I rushed into the Tower of Paradise again, Jelal was at the Tower of Paradise. The top floor. But he was completely different at that time. He no longer cared about others and became perverse and violent. Jellard told me that there was no freedom in the world, but he wanted to stay here to complete the ritual of the Tower of Paradise. Perhaps it was the last bit of kindness from the bottom of his heart that made Jelal not kill me, but let me leave the Tower of Paradise. But in exchange, I can't tell anyone about the Tower of Paradise, otherwise I will kill Wally and the others." When Urza said this, tears had already flowed. The people around her also fell into the pain of memories. There was a dead silence. "Urza, your eyes." Simon's horrified voice sounded, breaking the silence. Everyone was surprised to find that Urza only had tears in her left eye. Urza wiped her tears and said with all her might, "It's strange, right? The tears in the right eye have dried up." Mobai silently turned his head aside. He naturally knew that Urza's right eye was destroyed after she rebelled against the Tower of Paradise as a child and was tortured. Although she joined Fairy Tail later, President Makarov took her to see a doctor. Her vision was restored and she looked like a normal person, but she could no longer cry. Except for Simon, Shu and the other two were in deep shock and doubt at this moment. "Didn't you, sister, blow up the ship and abandon us in pursuit of magic? If Jelal hadn't discovered it earlier, we—" "It's just a lie," Simon interrupted, "it's all Jalal's conspiracy. He blew up the ship and betrayed us." "How is it possible?" Looking at Shu and others who were in disbelief, Simon sighed and continued. "When Urza was threatened by Jelal by the throat, I was there. It's a pity that my power was too small to stop him. Over the years, I have been pretending to be ignorant, just to find out Jalal's true purpose and stop him. But before that, I still have to make it clear to you that Urza has never betrayed us." Regret surged into my heart. The three of them had already lowered their heads, not daring to look into Urza's eyes again. "Sorry. I'm sorry." Mobai thought for a while, then asked in a deep voice. "You came to attack Urza this time, it was also Jalal's order, right?" Simon nodded silently, "Yes. The Tower of Paradise has been built, and two things are needed. One is the magic spirit power of the council, and the other is a person with a magician with the strength of the Holy Ten as a living sacrifice. And as far as I know, the magic spirit power may already be under Jalal's control. The magic spirit power is an extremely huge and terrifying magic power, which has always been reserved by the council, the highest authority of magic here, as a lethal weapon. If it is released, it can even raise a small country to the ground in an instant. As for the magician with the strength of the Holy Ten as a sacrifice, there is no doubt that according to Jalal's original plan, it is Urza. His ambition is obvious." The beach fell into a strange silence again. For a long time. "Jelal wants to take Urza back as a living sacrifice. Do you think I can do it?" Mobai suddenly said this, which scared everyone. Simon stared with his eyes, a little puzzled. "What do you mean? Doesn't he want a magician comparable to the Holy Ten? My strength is not worse than Urza. If you take me back, the ceremony can also be completed." Mobai shrugged, acting as if nothing had happened. "No, it's too dangerous." Urza retorted immediately, "This is my past, and I bear it alone. It has nothing to do with you or anyone in Fairy Tail." Seeing Urza getting stubborn again. But this time, Mobai was prepared. "Do it." "What?" Urza was stunned. Hearing Mobai's order, Shu, who had lowered his head, took out the card without hesitation, added magic power and threw it directly at Urza. Urza was completely unprepared. The card was like a small mobile cage, sucking Urza in and sealing her up instantly. "Let me out. What do you want to do?" Mobai chuckled, walked up and patted Shu on the shoulder. "Well done." Holding the card carefully, Shu stammered and explained. "I'm sorry, sister. When Simon was talking just now, your partner whispered to me to prepare to attack. We can't let you get hurt again. This is my business, and has nothing to do with Mobai. I will go with you to find Jelal, and let Mobai go back to the hotel immediately." Urza shouted. Mobai ignored this. He waved to the few people. "Let's go to the Tower of Paradise. You can take me back as a living sacrifice." On the sea. The ship sailed for a long time, and Mobai sat alone on the deck, quietly waiting for the shore. Speaking of which, Shouldn't the Dragon Slayer have no resistance to various means of transportation? I seem to be fine. Maybe it's because the power of Dragon Slayer has not been fully awakened. While thinking wildly, heavy footsteps came from behind. It was Simon. Are you sure you can deal with Jelal? Although I have seen your strength before, our magic is not at the same level as Jelal. To be honest, Mobai did not have a clear concept of his current strength. After all, it was the first time to face such a powerful opponent. But one thing is clear. He didn't want to see Urza cry again. Mobai's sight gradually moved to the distance, and his eyes became firm. No matter what happens later, you stay on the ship and don't move, and keep a good distance from the Paradise Tower. I will defeat Jelal. I will let Urza see it with her own eyes. The purgatory that tortured her entire childhood in the past will be completely destroyed tonight. Chapter 12. Standing on the deck, the pitch-black tower in the distance pierces the sky, giving people a strong sense of uneasiness. The surroundings are brightly lit, and countless spots of light are constantly moving. It was not until you get closer that you can see that it is a fully armed night patrol force. There are more than 1,000 people. Finally here. Mobai narrowed his eyes slightly, and the storm dragon wings on his back quietly bloomed, and then his body shot out. On the shore, the patrolling guards found Mobai's figure and immediately pulled the alarm signal. Enemy found, ready to shoot. Dense guns and bullets were fired at the same time, including attacks strengthened by magic. Mobai focused all his thoughts on the storm dragon wings behind him, and as the wings flapped vigorously. The strong wind was like a shield, blocking all attacks. The ammunition that lost power fell into the sea one after another, splashing small waves. Due to the dim light in the air and the long distance, the captain of the defending army did not realize this at all. He thought that the attack just now was not strong enough, so he ordered his men to attack more vigorously. Fire! Fire! More dense bullets came at him. Mobai leaned over to look at the vast ocean below him, and immediately had an idea. It seems that the power of the water dragon has not been used yet. Now is a good opportunity. Continuously shuttled through the hail of bullets. Mobai was not in a hurry to approach the Tower of Paradise, but instead circled in place. The captain of the guard thought that Mobai was afraid to escape due to fire suppression, and ordered to speed up the shooting frequency. He will soon have no strength to fly again, aim and shoot hard. Every time Mobai glided in the air, he poured part of his magic power into the sea. After assimilating with the dragon-slaying magic, the water surface had already set off turbulent waves, mixed with the impact of swallowing everything. The time has come. Mobai swung his arms forward suddenly. Water dragon's horrible waves. In an instant, the waves surged up, and the surging waves were like a ferocious beast, opening its bloody mouth to swallow everything. Sea, tsunami. The guards who were originally complacent and thought they had taken a big advantage were now scared out of their wits. Staring at the horrifying scene in front of them with wide eyes, their hearts were filled with fear and despair. Boom! As Mobai's arms fell, the water tide completely lost its power and smashed down. Regardless of whether the guards tried to hide or escape, they were all swept into it and became the nutrients of the sea. The shore was completely new after the wash. Only the Tower of Paradise still stood there, and the conventional attacks did not seem to cause serious damage to it. Mobai didn't care too much about this. His goal was always the same: Gerard on the top of the tower and the core device of the Paradise Tower. At the same time. Paradise Tower, top of the tower. In the dim room, the light was so weak that it was almost impossible to see the surrounding environment, but there was a figure that stood out. A blue-haired young man was looking down at everything that had just happened. Instead of anger, his face had a bit of a sneer. It was a blue-haired young man, at the top of the tower, looking down at everything that had just happened in a condescending manner. But his face did not show any anger or dissatisfaction. On the contrary, there was a bit of an elusive sneer. This person was Gerard. Watching Mobai's figure gradually rushing towards the tower, Jalal's mouth gradually showed a strange arc. What a powerful force. Those four rubbish haven't brought Urza back yet, have they failed again? However, the ceremony is about to begin, and using the little wizard who broke in as a living sacrifice seems to be a good choice. Assassinate the three crows of the guild. The plan has changed. The three of you will ambush on the second floor together, and the target is the flying wizard outside the tower. Jello waved his hand and turned his eyes to the three assassins hiding in the dark at the door. The three assassins responded and appeared from the darkness, respectfully bowing to Jello. Glad to serve you. Outside the tower. Mobai was about to move to the top of the tower by manipulating the wings of the storm dragon, and suddenly felt a burst of magic coming from under him. His heart suddenly tightened, and he quickly dodged to the side. Boom! The original position was instantly detonated by the magic light wave. Mobai's face was slightly solemn. This magic power was stronger than all the opponents he had seen before. Mobai looked down and found a blue-haired young man standing at the bottom of the tower. The young man had a handsome face, but there was a scarlet spot on the right half of his face. The strange mark of blue color was slightly hideous. Jellard. Seeing the blue-haired young man in front of him, Mobai clenched his fists, and flames almost appeared in his eyes. Thinking of the sufferings that Urza had suffered, most of which were caused by this man, Mobai wanted to punch him away. Wait, at this time, why would Jello come out alone to trouble me? This should be the critical moment for the activation of the Tower of Paradise ceremony. I remember that Jello has the strength of the 10 holy mages. It should be easy for him to manipulate several thoughts to attract attention. Thoughts are clones created by magic. For some powerful mages, it is not difficult to create thoughts. Mobai felt more and more that something was wrong. The Jello who had just attacked him under his feet was probably a 6-eared macaque who was diverting his attention. Thinking of this, Mobai left Jello behind and rushed to the top of the tower. As long as the center of the Paradise Tower can be attacked, Jalal's true body will definitely show up to defend. Fire Dragon's Iron Fist. A fire fist smashed down, and the magic wall on the top of the tower instantly cracked, and Mobai lifted it up with force. Directly Hardcore opened the door. But as soon as he stepped into it, the scene in front of him suddenly became blurred. The magic power in Mobai's body was running wildly, so he could see the real terrain clearly. Originally, the center of the Paradise Tower should be set up on the top floor, but it was basically empty here. Looking back at the position where he just came in, he found that he didn't know when the distance to the ground was very close. As this, the second floor. So that's it. The most important core device for the Paradise Tower will definitely not be directly exposed. This should be the magic illusion set by Jello, a special protection mechanism. Although I am flying to the top of the tower in my consciousness, I am actually diving down. Just as Mobai was hesitating, a woman's voice suddenly sounded in his ears. Unfortunately, I have to inform you that the journey ends here, handsome boy from the Wizard Guild. No one who has been targeted by the 3 crows of the Skull and Bones Society has ever been able to leave alive. Looking up. Among the 3, one has long hair and a guitar, and the makeup on his face is particularly exaggerated. One wears an owl headgear. At first glance, they are 2 perverts. Only the woman in the middle with a long knife looks more normal. Owl, eagle, turtledove. Assassinate the 3 crows of the guild. As a time traveler, Mobai is no stranger to them. Magic power quietly brews at Mobai's fingertips, and the fighting spirit is ignited. I originally wanted to go directly to the top of the tower. Although there were some small twists and turns, it's not a bad idea to push all the way up from here. Slip a little, you 3 come together. Chapter 13. Assassination has been considered an unreasonable way of fighting for hundreds of years. All regular guilds are prohibited from accepting assassination commissions. However, due to the generous bounty, some dark guilds that do not abide by the rules of the council are often happy to carry out this work. The Skull and Bones Society, where the 3 crows are located, is such an organization. Do you like rock music? Baby Tilda. The eagle on the right screamed, and its long nails swept across the guitar, making a series of strange sounds. The Dragon Slayer has a keen hearing, and this guy plays very badly. When Mobai heard it, he was inexplicably angry. If he was put on the street to perform, he might not only not make a penny, but also be thrown rotten eggs. If I remember correctly, this guy's magic is to control other people to become puppets through music, so he must be solved first. Thinking of this, lightning surged around Mobai, and his magic power was violent, ready to attack at any time. So reckless. Is it my music that makes you so crazy? Eagle sneered and fiddled with the guitar more vigorously. As the sound pressure continued to increase, a purple-black energy wave gradually formed and hit Mobai. But at the moment when it hit his chest, Mobai's figure turned into a golden light on the spot, flashing briefly and then disappearing. Afterimage. When the expression on Eagle's face was suddenly replaced by panic. At this moment, he was horrified to realize that a more turbulent thunder force had appeared beside him. Boom! Owl and Turtle Dove quietly watched the energy explosion. The eagle, who was originally screaming arrogantly, has now been electrocuted into a piece of charcoal. Storm Dragon Wings. After getting rid of one person, Mobai quickly flew into the air to look down. At the same time, Owl, wearing an owl headgear, also infused magic power and started the rocket thrusters behind him. I almost forgot that this guy can fly. With the advantage of the rocket launcher thruster, Xiao jumped left and right in the air. Whenever Mobai wanted to get close to him to end the battle, he was quickly dodged and pulled away. Mobai was fed up and just wanted to finish and go to the top of the tower as soon as possible. The power of thunder quietly emerged from his palm. There is a chance. Just as Mobai seized Xiao's flaw and prepared to attack, he realized the murderous intention from behind. Moonless flow yaksha flashing sky. Banjo's strong magic slashed into the air, and Mobai had to free up one hand to operate rock magic. The strong shield of rock cave dragon. The several-meter-high rock shield emerged in time. I don't know how many times Banjo's attacks were blocked. Although it was riddled with holes, it managed to maintain its intact form. When Mobai was thinking about how to deal with the two at the same time, Xiao suddenly sped up and rushed towards him in his field of vision. As expected of an assassination guild, they want to kill people by making good use of every opportunity. It's a pity that they are still half a beat late. With his extremely sharp five senses, Xiao's rapid attack was not worth mentioning in Mobai's eyes. The moment before the two sides came into contact, Mobai dodged slightly and reversed the situation in an instant. The opponent's active sneak attack provided him with an opportunity to attack. Iron Dragon's Steel Fist. Mobai turned iron with one hand and hit Xiao, who flew in front of him directly. In an instant, Xiao's body began to fall down uncontrollably, and the force of the fall penetrated the entire second-floor road and fell all the way to the bottom of the tower. After confirming that the other party was no longer moving, Mobai turned his sights to the last remaining woman. Your slash is very fast. But from now on, you have used all your magic power to increase the power of the long sword, right? Barajiu smiled slightly. No wonder Jello let the three crows deal with you at the same time. You are very strong. I will not hold back in the next attack. I couldn't ask for more. Moonless Flow Galuo Flash Flame. Flash Flame. Mobai was immediately interested, as if a keyword in his mind was triggered. Sure enough, with Banjo's extremely fast slash, a large amount of magic flames poured out and rushed towards Mobai. How could he not eat the experience that was delivered to his mouth? Mobai was not polite and opened his mouth wide to inhale violently. The originally violent magic flames were swept away. Banjo's beautiful eyes were full of shock. Perhaps it was because it was the first time he met a dragon slayer. He could not believe that the killing move that he was proud of and had killed countless strongmen was actually swallowed by the other party without any injury. What kind of monster is he? On the other hand, Mobai's momentum was even stronger than before. Power will surge out after eating it. Fire Dragon's Wing Attack. As Mobai moved forward at high speed, his arms wrapped in flames collided fiercely with Banjo's long sword, making a fierce explosion. Banjo felt hot all over, as if the flames of the broken bamboo seemed to melt him. The next moment, as Mobai's arms continued to press forward, cracks appeared on the long sword. And it shattered in just half a second. The winner has been decided. Great. He uttered a few words lightly, and Banjo fell straight to the ground. Ha! Just as Mobai was about to continue to move towards the top of the tower, an aggressive magic power came from his side. He glanced with his eyes. He immediately recognized the identity of the person. Is it Jalal's thought body outside the tower just now? Just as Mobai was about to use the steel skin to resist, he suddenly felt another familiar magic power rushing in. The steel skin that was originally half-activated, Mobai was stunned and held it back. At this moment, he actually abandoned all defenses and completely exposed his most vulnerable body to Jalal's thought body. Looking for death. Although the thought body didn't understand what this operation was, it still sneered and swung the meteor magic from its hand. Ding! The moment it was about to touch Mobai's back, a figure suddenly shot out and raised a heavy shield to perfectly block Mobai. The pupils of the thought body instantly dilated. Aluza. At this moment, Urza was wearing a silver-white diamond armor with amazing defense. She once single-handedly blocked the opponent's trump card magic convergence cannon in the guild battle with the Phantom Ruler. Aluza complained in a low voice, "It's really worrying. Can't you defend yourself?" Mobai smiled. "I noticed you would come a long time ago. That level of card magic will definitely not trap you. I didn't expect it to be so fast." Although he teased, Mobai's actions were not vague at all. Just when Jalal's thought body wanted to retreat, Mobai rushed up in one step, and the hot wind swept across. The iron fist of the fire dragon. The thought body's eyes flashed with fear, but it only lasted for a few seconds before it was completely burned by the flames and turned into nothingness. Next, Jello will be the only commander left. The wings of the storm dragon appeared, and Mobai was about to fly into the sky, but his arm was suddenly grabbed by Urza. "Go back. I will go find Jello myself." Mobai slowly typed a question mark. What's wrong with this elder sister? She wants to solve it alone again. Before she could say anything, the two people's minds suddenly surged, and then a paragraph of text was transmitted. "Welcome to the Tower of Paradise. I am Jello, the ruler here. The dark ritual just needs a powerful wizard as a living sacrifice. If anyone wants to become the nourishment for Zeref's resurrection, please come to the top of the tower to find me. By the way, the magic spirit power of the council will descend here soon. I only need one living sacrifice. As for the other person, if you don't leave, be careful to be buried together." The voice stopped abruptly. Mobai picked his ears casually and said nonchalantly, "Let's go. Go up together." Urza glared at this heartless guy fiercely. "So you didn't listen to Jalal's warning just now?" Seeing that she didn't move, Mobai spread his hands helplessly and explained. Have you ever thought that we were on the boat just now, so it's not convenient to use dragon-killing magic to restrain you? As long as I want, I can tie you here at any time, and I will go up and beat Jalal. I brought you here just because we are partners, and I don't want you to face all this alone." Aluza looked embarrassed, biting her red lips with her pearly teeth. "But, you should have received the message just now. It's very dangerous here now." "It's just a threat." Mobai smiled. He grabbed Urza's arm with his right hand, urged the storm dragon wings to fly straight to the top floor. "Don't worry, no one among us will die." Chapter 14. When Mobai and Urza finally rushed to the top of the tower, Jello was sitting lazily at the end, with various magic props engraved with strange runes in front of him. "I've been waiting for a long time, and you are still together." The roar of the fire dragon. Before Jello finished speaking, he felt a burst of hot magic in front of him, and quickly dodged. Mobai started at 0 frame and turned his direction to attack the top of the tower. Boom! With a loud bang, a huge corner of the roof of the tower was directly broken, revealing the gloomy sky. Jello then realized that Mobai didn't want to attack him at all. His original goal was to destroy the Tower of Paradise. If I'm not mistaken, the core devices of the Tower of Paradise are all here. As long as they are destroyed, your plan will collapse, right? Mobai smiled and said, and raised his foot to crush the magic props next to him. You. Jellard's face was full of blue veins and murderous intent. He was obviously very angry at Mobai's shamelessness. Let me guess, is the central system here? Boom. Or, it's in the machine over there. Looking at the unscrupulous Mobai, Jellard couldn't bear it anymore, and raised one hand above his head, and his magic burst out. 6 consecutive stars. The celestial body flashed and hit Mobai at a very fast speed. But Mobai seemed not to see it and continued to do his own thing. Dang! The light dissipated. Jellard didn't see the scene of Mobai being seriously injured by a blow. Instead, he saw a huge silver-white shield that resisted the impact just now. And the person who controlled the giant shield was Urza wearing the diamond armor, majestic and awe-inspiring. Jellard, it's time to make a break between us. Change clothes. Purgatory armor. Jalal's eyes narrowed slightly, and a faint laugh came from his throat. It's interesting. You're still the same after all these years, Urza. The dark black purgatory armor is known as Urza's second strongest armor, covered with spikes, and has amazing destructive power. Urza stared at the young man in front of her who had brought her countless shocks, and she couldn't help but clench the serrated steel knife. 7-star sword. After a brief confrontation, Jelal took the lead in attacking, and the dark night sky was instantly pierced by light. The Big Dipper shone, mixed with destructive magic power and fell. Urza dodged while observing the flaws in Jalal's attack, always looking for opportunities to get close to him. However, the opponent's attack frequency was too fast, and he couldn't find a breakthrough for a while. Jalal's brows tightened, and just as he was about to continue to borrow the power of the celestial body, he heard a faint roar of electric current in his ears. Thunder Dragon Jaw. Mobai had already stopped destroying the surrounding environment. Since Urza had no chance to attack, it would be my turn. A sneak attack might be a mean act. But the bewitched Jelal in front of him was indeed a villain who deceived his companions and took human lives lightly. Mobai was justified in playing dirty tricks on him. As Jelal was beaten back by a blow, Urza finally had a chance to breathe and readjusted her posture to prepare for the battle. Ha 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 ha. A sinister laugh came into her ears. Mobai and Urza both fixed their eyes on Jelal, who slowly stood up. Do you think that if you defeat me here, everything will be over? Naive. Just now, the council has completed the vote, and the magic spirit power will soon descend on the Tower of Paradise, and everyone will be buried with it. Aluza gritted her teeth, confusion flashed in her eyes. How could the council be controlled by him? Gerald laughed wildly. Are you curious? You will die here soon, and there is no need for me to hide it anymore. Zickline, one of the 10 holy wizards in the council, everyone thinks we are twin brothers. But in fact, he is just a thought of mine. After these words came out, Urza's eyes were full of shock. What? Jellard actually used his thought body to sneak into the council early and became a member of it. What's more terrifying is that the thought body named Zekrian was rated as one of the 10 holy wizards without anyone noticing. Perhaps in the battle just now, Jelal only exerted about half of his strength. Is it really going to end? Arusa smiled bitterly and looked at Mobai beside her, with an apologetic look in her eyes. However, since Jelal said the first sentence just now, Mobai has been indifferent and said nothing. Just looked at the dark night sky above his head. Time goes back a few minutes in front of us, thousands of miles away, is the Magic Council. This represents the highest authority in the wizard world. At this moment, the counselors are looking at the magic crystal ball in the middle, and the atmosphere is serious. The Tower of Paradise. Is it the device that uses a large number of living sacrifices to revive the dead? Shouldn't this be destroyed 10 years ago? We just discovered it recently. And according to intelligence, the controller of the Tower of Paradise. The reporter said, casting his eyes on the youngest counselor. And this youngest counselor looks exactly like Gerard. The controller of the Paradise Tower is probably Senator Zikrian's twin brother, Jelal. Zikrian's eyes did not show much fluctuation when he heard this. He spoke slowly under the focus of everyone's attention. I think everyone present knows how dangerous the Paradise Tower is. Now that the ceremony is about to start, extraordinary measures must be taken immediately to curb it. Extraordinary measures? What do you mean? Magic spirit power. Zikrian's tone was sonorous, and the other senators were all shocked. After a long time, a hoarse voice came from the corner. Magic spirit power is too dangerous. I think we should take a long-term view. Besides, isn't Jelal your brother? Zikrian looked like he was willing to sacrifice his own brother for the sake of justice. As a counselor, it is my responsibility to protect the stability of the magician world. Even if I have to kill Jelal with my own hands, I will not hesitate. The other senators finally had nothing to say. Then let's vote according to the rules. First of all, I agree to use the magic spirit power. The threat of the Paradise Tower must be eliminated as soon as possible, and I also suggest using it. Let's be cautious. The number of people in favor and against is almost the same. Until the last young woman in white in the corner, named Urusha. I agree. Eurydia smiled calmly, raised her right arm, and stood on the side of Zikrian. Okay. In this case, the final decision is to use the magic spirit power. All the council members present, please follow me and lift the seal. Chapter 15. As the seal was gradually lifted, multiple magic circles appeared, and a strong magical aura floated out. Is it finally done? Next, we have to choose the target at the Paradise Tower. As the location was determined, the ultimate weapon, the magic spirit power, which contained huge energy, was instantly released. Under the gazes of all the counselors, the terrifying magic power rushed straight into the sky. About half a minute later, Mobai, Urza and Jelal, who were still confronting each other on the top of the tower, finally felt the terrifying impact of the magic spirit power. Finally, the dark ritual is about to begin. Jelal looked up at the turbulent night sky and laughed wildly. Are I going to die here again? While Urza was thinking wildly, a teasing voice suddenly sounded in her ears. Would you like to give me a warm hug at the last moment of your life? It was Mobai who spoke. Looking at the still unruly Mobai in front of her, Urza couldn't help but smile bitterly. They were still working together at Kobo Mountain the day before yesterday, and this time Mobai was able to come on vacation entirely because of her invitation. She only felt guilty. At this moment, there was no way to refuse Mobai's last proposal. As the luster of the change of clothes flashed, Urza's armor had been completely removed, replaced by a beautiful long skirt. She gently leaned against Mobai's arms. Urza whispered. I should have tried my best to stop you from coming here. Mobai still smiled and said, it's not too late now. Didn't I say that we won't die? Fool. With the roar of energy, the magic spirit power finally descended over the Tower of Paradise, and 1,000 feet of white light rose. In an instant, Urza looked up at Mobai's face. His lips moved, as if he wanted to say something to her. After all, she didn't hear it. The vision gradually became clear. Urza opened her eyes. But she found herself still on the top of the ruined tower, still tightly embraced by Mobai. What is going on? Jelal was still standing opposite. But the ferocious expression on his face was gone, only surprise remained. How is this possible? Mobai spoke in a deep voice. According to your plan, the advent of the magic spirit power will not kill anyone in the Paradise Tower, but will only become a key to activate the dark ritual of the Paradise Tower. Because you still need us as living sacrifices. But for some reason, now that the magic spirit power has arrived, the ritual has not started. Am I right? Hearing Mobai's voice, Jello immediately raised his bloodshot eyes and stared at him. What did you do? Mobai shrugged, looking innocent. Just when you and Urza were fighting, I finally found the Paradise Tower's receiver for magic spirit power. I have to say that your plan is very thorough. The damage I did before had almost no effect. Even if I found the receiver in the end, I couldn't destroy it quickly. Fortunately, I destroyed the magic power conversion system. In this way, even if you can accept the magic spirit power, you can no longer turn it into energy to activate the dark ritual. Mobai's voice was not loud. Every word he said went straight to Jalal's heart, tearing his years of hard work into pieces bit by bit. So, you knew we wouldn't die? Urza suddenly asked in his arms. Yes. Urza pushed Mobai away and put on her armor again after hearing this. Mobai clearly saw a blush on her face. I don't know if it was anger or shyness. How shameless. Ahem. Let's talk about it later. Whether it's toothless or toothless, the battle is not over yet. Not far away. Jello, who was stimulated to the limit by Mobai, finally exploded, and the magic power with overwhelming resentment continued to surge out. Dare to destroy the Tower of Paradise, you must stay and become a living sacrifice, no matter how long you wait. And I don't know when, a clone who looks exactly like him appeared behind him. Dressed in formal clothes, looking very decent. Urza thought, is that Zekrian? The thought body that Jello left in the council. The return of the thought body means that Jello has regained his peak strength. Mobai also had to be fully alert to deal with it. Zekrian's cold face showed a trace of bloodthirstiness, and he took 2 steps at a time and jumped directly to the top of the tower. Just when his figure disappeared from Mobai's sight, Jalal's magic power exploded again, even several times more terrifying than before. He is letting the thought body act as a conversion of magic spirit power device. Mobai suddenly realized. Jellard has gone crazy to such an extent that he directly chooses to absorb such a huge amount of magic power. If the thought body Zekrian can be ranked at the bottom of the Holy 10, and Zekrian returns to the body, Jello can probably be ranked around the 6th or 7th place. Then Jello, who has absorbed the power of the magic spirit at this moment, has reached an extremely terrifying strength. Among the Holy 10, except for the monsters ranked in the top 4, I am afraid that no one can compete with it. What an amazing aura. Arusa's heart trembled. Mobai analyzed in a deep voice, but in this case, he will not be able to hold on for long, and will be backfired by the magic spirit power. We still have a chance. And Jello himself obviously knew this, and rushed forward violently, heading straight for Mobai and Urza. Pay attention to defense. Steel skin. With the power of the magic spirit, Jalal's speed and strength increased linearly, and his left and right arms released magic at the same time. Mobai could still resist, but Urza gradually fell into disadvantage. A slight cracking sound was heard. Urza's most defensive diamond armor was actually blasted with a gap. Mobai saw that the situation was not right, so he simply jumped in front of Urza and let the huge celestial magic bombard the left side of his body. Granite Dragon's Shield. The moment the brown dragon slaying shield opened, Urza's diamond armor shattered directly, and he was also seriously injured. It's ridiculous. Seeing Urza fall beside him, Mobai had no way to retreat, and released magic again to block it. Mobai. Sheltered under the rock dragon's shield, Urza stood up again to endure the severe pain in her body. Can you fight again? Aluza nodded slightly and activated the magic of disguise. In the blink of an eye, within sight, Urza no longer relied on any armor for defense. The upper body was only wrapped with bandages around the chest, and the legs were in flame-patterned bloomers. The demon sword Hongying was tightly grasped in his hand. Mobai's eyes were instantly filled with ecstasy. Pure heart clothes. Mobai was naturally very familiar with this outfit. Due to her childhood experience, Urza, who lacked a sense of security since childhood, liked to wear armor, which in a sense formed a shackle for her. And now she finally broke this shackle and put on the pure heart clothes. It was undoubtedly a leap in strength. Mobai clearly remembered how many times it seemed impossible to win. Urza reversed it with the pure heart clothes and the demon sword Hongdiang. Chapter 16. Bang! Another meteor strikes, and the already riddled shield of the cave dragon shatters. Mobai and Urza's figures are completely exposed, without any means of defense. Jello showed a grim smile on his face, staring at Urza with amusement. You even gave up the armor, aren't you afraid of being killed by my blow? Urza shook her head calmly. I have people around me who are willing to protect me, and the armor is no longer needed. At this moment, Urza, who abandoned all defenses, had a firm look in her eyes, and concentrated all her spirit in the attack, vowing to fight to the death. The tip of the knife pointed forward. Let's make a break. Looking at Urza charging over, Jalal's mouth curled up a little. Raised his left arm above his head again, and drew down the power of the celestial body. The bombardment of magic mercilessly tore Urza's body apart. Without the protection of the armor, she was enduring unprecedented pain every second. But because of the disappearance of the armor, she became more agile and successfully rushed to Jello. The demon sword Hongdiang slashed down. Jello was prepared and set up a wall of starlight in front of him in time to block the attack instantly. Useless Urza, your fate is to become a sacrifice for Zeref's resurrection. Looking at Urza, who was at a disadvantage, Mobai frowned. At that time, Natsu seemed to have eaten some of the magic spirit power, and finally defeated Jello with the Dragon Slayer secret art. But I have only mastered magic for a short time. Can the Dragon Slayer secret art really be released? And with Jalal's thought body, I can't directly absorb the magic spirit power. A bold idea flashed through Mobai's mind. Wait, maybe I can try to combine multiple dragon-slaying magics and activate them at the same time. Seeing Urza still resisting despite the pain all over her body, Mobai no longer hesitated and tried to activate multiple dragon-slaying magics in his body at the same time. Darkness. 2 shuttle-shaped crystals, one red and one yellow, responded. Fire and electricity are there only the 2 most commonly used ones. Mobai wanted to further experience the mystery of dragon slaying, but the wings of the storm dragon behind him suddenly bloomed and sent the next magic power directly. And storm, dragon slaying magic, fusion. As the 3 different magic powers intertwined, Mobai's arms were faintly covered with dragon scales, and the fused magic powers gradually gathered. Just when Urza was repelled and seriously injured by Jalal's meteor magic again, her magic power finally reached its peak. Dragon slaying secret, dragon singing for thousands of years. Originally, Jello had already seriously injured Urza, and just when he thought he had won, he suddenly felt an extremely terrifying force coming towards him. Jalal's pupils instantly dilated, and he could vaguely see the projection of a giant dragon from Mobai who rushed over. Illusion, it's an illusion. True celestial magic starfall. With the power of the magic spirit and the power given to me by Zeref, you can't defeat me. Mobai's eyes were firm, and his arms, carrying the majestic power of dragon slaying, suddenly swung out, and the magic power swept over. The dragon's might for thousands of years intertwined with the starlight of the celestial body. An unprecedented vibration broke out, and the entire paradise tower trembled. Inserting the demon sword downward, Urza climbed up with difficulty, looking at the collision of the 2 strongest killing moves in front of her, and also felt unprecedented pressure. But in her eyes, there was more shock and worry about Mobai. Is he trying to defeat Jello from the front? The 2 people stared at each other, as if they were going to tear each other apart in the next second. As the magic power continued to flow out, the surrounding space seemed to be cut off. Jello gritted his teeth and was about to borrow the thought body Zekrian to further obtain the power of the magic spirit power. But suddenly there was a severe pain in his body, and his eyes trembled suddenly. Just at this time, backlash. Feeling the opponent's breath weakening, Mobai seized the opportunity and swung his arms wrapped in dragon-killing magic heavily. When Jello wanted to defend again, he was already powerless. Boom! The smoke dissipated, and Mobai's body was in a half-bow state, breathing heavily. It was obvious that the first release of the Dragon Slayer's secret was a huge consumption. On the other hand, Jello was knocked away by the previous blow. His body hit the back wall uncontrollably, leaving thousands of cracks. Looking at Jalal's embarrassed and painful expression, Mobai immediately realized that he was suffering from the backlash of the magic spirit power. I dare not imagine what will happen next. Retreat. Exhaust the last bit of magic power. Mobai activated the storm dragon wings, kicked the broken wall open, and flew out of the tower with his arms, picking up the still confused Urza. On the outside of the tower, Zekalain was entangled by the magic spirit power, his body was convulsing, and he was in great pain. Stay here, become Zeph's living sacrifice. But Mobai couldn't care less at this time, and he had to escape. However, he flew only a few meters away. The storm dragon wings became illusory, and the speed slowed down a lot. Looking down, the two had not left the island yet. If they fell, they would be smashed to pieces. Mobai swallowed his saliva, but suddenly felt Urza's soft call in his arms, and she seemed to be holding two thin strips of something in her hands. This is rebar. I got it for you when you kicked the wall open. Mobai was overjoyed, took the rebar and swallowed it. The body was instantly supported by magic, although not much, but enough to make the originally withered wings rejuvenate. Flew far in one breath. Until it was quite far away from the Paradise Tower and confirmed that it was temporarily safe, it stopped in the air for a short time. What's wrong? The magic power over there is becoming more and more unstable. Aluza looked back after hearing this. After just a few seconds, the top of the Paradise Tower suddenly exploded within her sight. The waves shook the earth and raised waves, and the sea surface was turbulent. The majestic magic spirit power surged into the sky, breaking the dark clouds that had accumulated for a long time, revealing a little starlight. Due to the destruction of the central system, the entire tower seemed to have lost the protection of magic. And it was under the huge pressure of the battle just now, and it gradually collapsed at this moment. Completely cover up the crimes that had happened here. Boom. When the smoke and dust cleared, only a ruin remained here. The painful memories of the past were buried together with the boys she loved in her childhood. Tower of Paradise. Jello. She stared blankly at the scene in front of her. After a long time, Urza finally put her head close to Mobai's ear and said in a small voice, "Thank you, Mobai." Looking at the pale and weak Urza in his arms, Mobai gently stretched out his fingers to wipe away her tears. "Urza, your right eye is also crying." "Really?" Mobai finally felt relieved. Tears flowed normally in both eyes. The knot in his heart was untied. So far, the nightmare that had haunted Urza for 10 years has come to an end. Chapter 17. On the ship. "Simon, are my sister and the others really okay?" Shu asked. Looking at Shu's worried eyes, Simon didn't know how to explain. Before leaving, Mobai specifically told him to keep a certain distance from the Tower of Paradise no matter what happened, and never leave the ship. At this moment, there is no other way except to choose to believe. "Look over there." Wally's terrified voice came. Then a terrifying wave of magic swept through, and the four looked into the distance in horror. The towering black tower in front of them collapsed at this moment. Tower of Paradise. "Where's Urza? Did you see Urza come out?" No one answered. The sound of collapse in the distance was deafening. But the four of them lowered their eyes, their expressions dim. "Wait, look over there. Is it Urza-chan, and her companions in the guild?" Miliana's surprised voice brought everyone back to reality. Following the direction of her finger, there was a black shadow not far away, slowly flying towards them. "It seems to be them. They look injured, but fortunately they are all alive." Simon couldn't help but take a breath, his eyes full of shock and ecstasy. "That Mobai, Really, did it? Destroy the Tower of Paradise, destroy the dark ritual, and return safely from Jalal's hands. How capable is he? Under the crazy waving of the four people, Mobai in the air finally folded up the storm dragon wings. Holding Urza in his arms, he stood steadily on the deck. Fortunately, I have fulfilled my mission. Put the seriously injured Urza in the cabin. Mobai took the initiative to ask everyone to reminisce, and he was responsible for driving the ship to take everyone back to the resort. The scene changed and came to the cabin. Looking at the pile of complicated levers and buttons in front of him, Master Mo fell into deep thought. I was so busy showing off that I let them rest, but now I remembered. I can't drive a boat at all. When I was in a state of panic. Creaky tilde. The door opened. A sturdy man walked in, and Mobai looked up. Simon. According to the original plot, after the Paradise Tower was activated, Simon blocked a key attack for Urza to save her, and he was fatally injured and died in the Paradise Tower. Mobai obviously noticed this a long time ago and deliberately didn't let him follow. It was indirectly saved his life. Pull the gate on the far left up, and I'll help you with the rest. Ahem, thank you. Under Simon's guidance, Mobai was in a mess, but he finally got the ship moving. Sailing. For a long time. Simon finally couldn't help but blurt out. Actually, I've liked Urza since we were captured together in the Tower of Paradise when we were little. Puff. Mobai couldn't hold it back. No, buddy, you like her and told me. What's going on? Simon didn't react as much as Mobai, and explained. Thanks to you this time, the Paradise Tower was destroyed and Urza was safe. You are partners in the same guild, can I trouble you to take good care of her in the future? No problem, no problem. Mobai agreed vaguely, and then asked, what are your plans next? Urza invited us to join Fairy Tale, and Shu temporarily agreed. But we have agreed to leave when the ship docks. First, we don't want to cause trouble for Urza, and second, we have broken the shackles of 10 years and want to go out to pursue true freedom. Simon said here, and suddenly emphasized, please take good care of Urza. Definitely. A moment later. On the beach. Mobai gently picked up the sleeping Urza and stood by the beach of the resort. Thanks to Simon's dark moment magic, she has already blocked the interference from the outside world. She can sleep well. I'm so sorry for what happened before, young man. Before parting, Wally thought of the indiscriminate attack on Mobai last night, and couldn't help but feel guilty. Thank you for helping us see Jalal's true face. Miliana added on the side. In addition to thanking, the four people really didn't know what to say. After all, it helped so much. The moment the Tower of Paradise fell, the haze in their hearts began to dissipate. Mobai smiled lightly and waved his hand gently. Don't you plan to stay any longer? Join the Fairy Tale Guild. We are afraid that if we stay here, it will only bring back my sister's painful memories. Mobai heard this and did not ask any more questions. Good luck to you. The melodious sound of the flute rang through the sky. The first warm breeze of the morning blew. Mobai watched the ship carrying the four people go farther and farther, until they could no longer see their waving figures. Completely disappeared on the horizon. The morning light flashed across Urza's face, and she opened her eyes hazily. Awake. Urza said in a daze, where is this? Simon and the others. After putting us back in the resort, they left. After being bound to the Tower of Paradise for so long, perhaps, only by going out to see more of the outside world can the pain of the past 10 years be healed. Okay. Urza nodded regretfully. Looking around, she noticed that her body was half dangling in the air. She was lying in Mobai's arms again without knowing when. In the same position as when she escaped from the Tower of Paradise. Well, you can put me down now. I've been holding you all the way, so I won't miss a moment. Mobai pouted. Urza was very light without armor. She felt soft in his arms, and the warm breath kept rushing to her body. Mobai was really reluctant to let her go. Mobai, Urza. Walking on the beach facing the rising sun, a familiar shout was heard from afar. 3 people and a cat were running towards them. Natsu, Gray, Lucy, Happy. Looking at his guildmates, Mobai felt more at ease. Running to the front, Lucy bent down to take a breath, and then asked with concern. Where have you been? I haven't seen you since last night. Wait, why are you all injured? Nothing. Urza asked me to fight yesterday, and we just finished fighting. Feeling Urza's murderous gaze in his arms, Mobai coughed twice, quietly leaned into her ear and whispered. Maybe you think these things between partners don't need to be concealed, and I respect your ideas. But there will be plenty of opportunities in the future. Rest well first. Don't forget, we only have 3 days to vacation here, and there is no time to think about sad things. Quote. Aluza reluctantly agreed, turned around and smiled at the 3 people. Sorry, Lucy, I made you worry. I'm a little tired, so I'll go back to the hotel with Mobai first. Oh, okay. Looking at the 2 people's slightly intimate backs, Lucy suddenly felt her face getting hot, and quietly approached Natsu and whispered. Natsu, do you think Urza and Mobai seem to be a little bit wrong? Ah, is there? Natsu slowly typed a question mark, scratching his head and couldn't figure out what Lucy meant. Nothing is wrong. Lucy patted her head helplessly. Alas, I really can't explain it to you. Natsu's flying cat Happy came out from nowhere, quietly flew among the crowd and suddenly asked loudly. Lucy also wants to be carried by a princess. Lucy blushed immediately. No. Chapter 18. A few days later. The 5 people and 1 cat who had a great time finally returned to the guild. Pushed open the door. We are back. There was complete silence. Mobai was also confused. What happened? Did I open it the wrong way? Why is the guild so quiet today? Looking inside, the hall seemed to be no different from usual. Murajan was sitting at the front desk, and Makarov was lying lazily beside him. The others were basically in their respective seats. But no one responded at this moment. Until he realized that everyone's eyes were looking at him, converging on him. Mobai was completely aware of the abnormality. No, why are you all staring at me? Is there a magic word on my face? Mobai was a little at a loss, and he bent down a little, and walked slowly like a thief. But he unexpectedly noticed that everyone's eyes were still focused on him. Wherever he went, they followed him. Ahem. Macau, what are you doing? Mobai grabbed a random person and asked in a half-helping tone. Macau stretched out his arm tremblingly, grabbed a copy of Wizard Weekly from the side and handed it over. His eyes never moved to other places. It's really strange. Mobai muttered softly, flipping through the magazine randomly to try to find the reason. Then he saw a striking report. He was dumbfounded on the spot. The council was attacked a few days ago. The true identity of the 10 holy wizards, Zikrian, is the thought body of Jelal, the ruler of the Tower of Paradise. After investigation, it was found that Jelal colluded with Ultir to steal the magic spirit power, and his real purpose was to activate the dark ritual of the Tower of Paradise. After stabilizing the situation in the council, the captain of the 4th Forced Supervision Force, Lahar, led the army to the scene, but found that the Tower of Paradise had just been destroyed and collapsed. In the end, only 2 mysterious wizards were photographed flying in the air. It is inferred that these 2 people are most likely the destroyers of the Tower of Paradise. Turning over the next page, a blurry back photo came into view. However, from the posture and wings, it can be vaguely distinguished that this was when he was photographed holding Urza and flying out. This is TM. Mobai was embarrassed. From the shooting angle, the council's army happened to be in a different direction from Simon's ship. Simon and his team were not discovered, otherwise they would definitely cause trouble again. Perhaps because of the severe loss of magic power at that time, Mobai did not notice the arrival of the council army. Seeing Mobai's strange expression, Urza and others also came up, and then they saw the photo. Natsu picked up the magazine and looked at it carefully with Grey Hobby, looking at the photo and then at Mobai. Repeatedly several times, he couldn't help but ask a soul-searching question. Is this you? Mobai smiled bitterly, gently activated the power of the Storm Dragon Slayer, and his wings suddenly appeared, exactly the same as in the photo. See, I said it was Mobai a long time ago. Makarov sat on the counter with a smug look on his face. When the magazine was just delivered to the guild, he immediately recognized Mobai by his wings, and deduced that he was holding Urza in his arms. But at that time, everyone was half believing and half doubting. After all, they had never seen the storm dragon wings with their own eyes. Now seeing the scene in front of them, they had to believe it. The originally quiet guild was suddenly filled with heated discussions. So, the Paradise Tower was completely destroyed by Mobai and Urza. I only heard the president say that the newcomers were strong before, but I didn't expect them to be so strong. However, how did they defeat Jelal? His thought body has the strength of the Holy Ten, so isn't he? Luce's big watery eyes were full of disbelief. The teammate who played with her in the sand for 3 days actually took the time to destroy a dark ritual device. So hidden. Is it really you? When did it happen? Urza nodded with a wry smile. It was on the first night of the vacation. I'm sorry, I couldn't tell you right away. I was going to explain it back at the guild. Under the constant soft and hard persuasion of everyone, Mobai had to admit that it was indeed him and Urza who did it. And he simply described the process at that time in a few words. However, he deliberately didn't mention the name Jelal, worried that it would bring back painful memories for Urza who had just come out of it. The members of the guild also discovered the blind spot in his words. Wait a minute, Mobai. You just said you used Dragon Slayer magic. The same as Natsu and Gajil. Do you eat fire or iron? It seems that you can eat both. What are your attributes? Water, fire, wind, rock, wood, earth, thunder, and iron. I have 8 attributes. 8. Everyone felt that the 3 views they had established since learning magic were impacted. Most wizards will major in one kind of magic, and their own magic power will gradually adapt. As for some secondary magic, it is difficult to exert the maximum power. Generally, few people master and practice it, and it is often used as an auxiliary. Dragon-slaying magic is even more scarce. Natsu and Gajil mastered one kind, which was already one of the powerful forces of the guild. And Mobai actually practiced 8 different attributes of dragon-slaying magic at one time. This is no longer a pervert. It's simply a monster. Although Makarov acted very calmly, the joy between his eyebrows was still difficult to conceal. What makes me feel gratified is not how much noise you make or how much achievement you have made, Mobai. It's that you have known to protect your companions not long after entering the guild. Quote. But in terms of strength alone, our guild seems to have an additional youngest S-class wizard. As soon as this was said, everyone became more interested in talking. I wonder who is stronger than Guildarts, who has been away from the guild for 3 years. I think it's not just S-class, it's the level of the 10 holy wizards, right? But the 10 holy wizards is just a false name, used to honor wizards who are powerful and have made outstanding contributions to the magic world. Many strong people are not among them because they are low-key. I think the next president will be Mobai. Puff! Exclamation mark quote. Makarov finally couldn't help it, and a mouthful of hot tea spurted out, and then shouted. I'm not dead yet. Let's go, do what we need to do. Amidst the boos, the guild members finally dispersed and returned to their previous relaxed state. What no one noticed was that on the second floor, a blond young man in a black coat stood up at some point. There was a lightning-shaped scar on the young man's right eye, which made him look a little fierce. Mobai is a little interesting. Through this battle, in addition to redeeming Urza, Mobai also had 2 biggest gains. One is that he mastered the simple secret of dragon slaying, which gave him a direction for improving his strength in the future. The second is that he finally understood his full strength. If Jello, who was blessed with the power of magic spirits, was temporarily ranked around the 5th place in the Holy 10, I dare not say that he can surpass Jello 100%, after all, his defeat was due to the backlash of the power of magic spirits. Mobai can at least be on par with him. In terms of magic power alone, he is even slightly better than President Makarov. Chapter 19. Mobai was about to turn around and leave. Hey Mobai, since you are so strong, come and fight me. I am fired up. This is a passionate and aggressive voice. Without looking back, you can guess that it is Natsu. Mobai spread his hands, but I just came to Magnolia not long ago, and now I don't even have a place to live. If I don't find a house, I will sleep on the street again tonight. That's easy, Lucy. Natsu's brain is rarely bright, and he directly calls Lucy, who has also joined the guild not long ago. Lucy is quite experienced in where to rent a house. In this way, Mobai seems to have no reason to refuse. Besides, he is looking forward to fighting with Natsu. Mobai rubbed his palms. In this case, let's go outside to fight now. Wait, I have something to ask you. What? Natsu, who has always been straightforward, suddenly became cautious, and Mobai couldn't help wondering. Under Mobai's puzzled gaze, Natsu finally revealed the truth. You are also a dragon slayer, right? Or, you were also raised by a dragon. Mobai immediately guessed what Natsu wanted to know. As the first generation of dragon slayers, Natsu was raised by the fire dragon Ignil and taught dragon slayer magic. He regarded Ignil as his father since he was a child. But until July 7, 777, Ignil suddenly disappeared. Natsu, who was still a child at the time, searched desperately, but could not get any clues. Until he joined the Fairy Tale Guild later, Natsu still did not let go of the news about the fire dragon Ignil. The same was true for Gajil, the Iron Dragon Slayer of the same guild. On July 7, 777, the Iron Dragon Metalikana who raised him up seemed to have evaporated from the face of the earth, and it has continued to this day. Mobai guessed that Natsu thought he was also a dragon slayer and might know some clues. Sorry, Natsu, I just implanted the dragon slayer magic crystal into my body to obtain dragon slayer magic. I was not raised by a dragon. Is that so? Natsu heard this and a look of disappointment appeared on his face. But Mobai changed the subject and said, I do know something about the whereabouts of the dragon you want to know. Are you serious? Natsu suddenly became energetic again, with excitement flashing in his eyes. Of course. As long as you can beat me in the competition later, I will tell you everything I know. Mobai's voice was not loud, but it fell like a thunder in the guild hall. Everyone gathered again without knowing when. They didn't care about what Mobai said about the whereabouts of the dragon, they only cared about whether they would fight later. So, Mobai accepted Natsu's challenge in disguise. But the question is, how can Natsu win? Have you forgotten that he is beaten by Urza every day and can't take care of himself? I bet a bag of spicy noodles that Natsu will be slapped away directly. Where is Kana? I want to bet on Mobai to win. 10,000 J. Hey, look at the rules of both cards before betting. The red card area means that you think Natsu will be beaten away by Mobai within 5 minutes, and the blue card area means that you think Natsu will be beaten away by Mobai after 5 minutes. Looking at the noisy guild members, Urza's problem as a discipline committee member came back, and she glanced at Makarov beside her. President, aren't you going to take action to control them? Well, it's nothing wrong for everyone to play occasionally. Seeing Urza speak, Makarov had to smile and quietly hide his hand holding the purse behind his back, but he was muttering in his heart. Really, I wanted to find Kana to place a bet. In the crowd, someone said, if Mobai loses, he will tell Nazlong's whereabouts. What if Naz loses? You're kidding. How could I lose? Naz turned around and shouted in dissatisfaction. As a hot-blooded single-celled organism, he seemed to have never considered this issue. Then let Mobai tell it himself. What do you want me to do if you win? Mobai didn't have the heart to kill Naz too much. He said casually, help me pay for a year's rent. Okay. Naz agreed without hesitation. Natsu, you have to think it through. Flying Cat Habib pulled Natsu's trouser leg and advised. Don't think about it. As long as Ignil's whereabouts are known, the rent for 10 years will be no problem. Even Mobai didn't expect him to be so straightforward. Outside the guild, in an open space, members gathered. And in the front were Mobai and Natsu, who had previously made an appointment to fight. Then it's a deal, I'll tell you when I defeat you news about Ignir. Seeing Mobai smiling and nodding, Natsu became more eager to fight. He pushed hard with his feet and rushed forward with his fists full of flames. Fire Dragon's iron fist. Granite Dragon's strong shield. But Mobai still stood there, not dodging, until Natsu got close to him, then he raised his hand to raise the giant shield. Boom! The magic of fire and rock collided and rolled up the wind and waves. Even the people watching the battle felt a lot of pressure and took a small step back. Wait until the momentum of the fire fist was completely resolved by the rock shield. But Mobai did not move at all. Natsu's eyes flashed with surprise, and then he quickly reacted, turned sideways and changed his moves to attack again. Fire Dragon's wing attack. The arms wrapped in flames swung out vigorously, like dragon wings flashing, and continuously whipped the giant shield. Natsu's attack frequency became faster and faster. Natsu noticed that the light on the giant shield became dim, and he seemed to see the hope of winning in an instant, and immediately used his best moves again. Hook Claw. Broken Fang. Sword Horn. Natsu used all his strength to frantically operate magic to attack, and chopped on the brown giant shield again and again. It's broken. The last blow. Taking advantage of the momentum to jump away from Mobai, Natsu took a deep breath, and his cheeks became bigger and bigger. The roar of the fire dragon. Explosive flames gushed out of his mouth, scorching the earth wantonly, emitting steaming heat waves, and the final gathering point of magic power was all concentrated on Mobai's shield. Under the tense eyes of the crowd, a steady stream of flames rushed forward. The shield seemed to have a crack. Then the crack spread rapidly, like a domino collapse, and spider webs covered the giant shield. Broken. The flames did not stop there, and the next moment, the hot red light directly swallowed up the exposed Mobai. It's over. Everyone was speechless. Will Mobai be killed in seconds because of underestimating the enemy? But this thought only lasted for a few seconds, and a calm voice came from the flames. Well done, Natsu. Chapter 20. The flames dissipated. Mobai appeared in front of the fairy tale members. His skin was gray-black like steel, indestructible. It was obviously a defensive measure taken by Mobai after the shield was broken just now. No hair was hurt. Everyone reacted at this time. As this, Gajil's steel skin. There are 8 types of Dragon Slayer magic, but Mobai has only used rock and steel. Look at Mobai's current position. It seems that his feet haven't moved since just now. In other words, Mobai has never moved or used any attack magic from beginning to end. He just put up a shield and acted as a living target, but Natsu is already sweating profusely. Did he eat Natsu's fire just now? It shouldn't be. I heard that the fire of the Dragon Slayer is special, and even if they have the same attributes, they can't eat each other. Go on, Mobai. I bet on you to win within 5 minutes, you can't lose. Natsu, don't attack. Hold on for another 2 minutes, and I'll give you half of the winnings. If you're new, practice more. I forgot later. As the atmosphere became more heated, Natsu's eyes lost the excitement of the first battle, and became more cautious and calm. In the crowd, a guild member who had bet that he could hold out for 5 minutes, perhaps fearing that Natsu would be crippled by the next blow, actually threw a burning torch directly in Natsu's direction. Natsu, go for it. Thank you. Natsu was instantly overjoyed, as he could continue to replenish his magic power with the flame. He immediately jumped into the air, and just as he was about to reach out to take the torch, his eyes suddenly darkened. Looking carefully, Mobai had also jumped up and arrived in front of him. Mobai smiled apologetically. He then kicked Natsu back to the spot with a flying kick, and the torch landed firmly in his hand. Natsu's face was full of black lines, but he could do nothing about it. He could only watch helplessly as Mobai put the fire and the wood into his mouth. Mobai did not forget to wipe his mouth. The power will surge out after eating it. Don't steal my lines. Natsu was so angry that he stomped his feet. But the current situation obviously won't give him a chance to throw a tantrum. As a dragon slayer, Mobai's magic power increased after taking the flame and the wooden handle, and his right fist burst into a hotter flame. At this moment, he finally took the initiative to attack. At the moment when Mobai attacked, Natsu was about to raise his arms to resist, and suddenly heard a deep voice. "I'll help you." Then, Natsu saw a determined black shadow standing in front of him, directly helping him to block the attack. Boom! The magic power exploded. After taking the heavy blow of Mobai's fire fist, the figure was obviously unable to support it, and bent down slightly to relieve it temporarily. Gajeel. Natsu recognized the person and smiled knowingly. "Sure enough, you are also concerned about where the dragon that raised you has gone." "Tisk, I'm not interested. I haven't been to work recently. I just want to exercise my skills." Gajeel put on a disdainful expression and refused to admit it. He turned around and shouted at Mobai. "The fire dragon is not as good as others. Next, I will be your opponent. In exchange, if I win, tell me about the dragon." "Who do you say is not as good as others?" "Steel Soul." Looking at Gajeel, who was eager to try, and Natsu, who was shouting and dissatisfied, Mobai naturally had no objection. "You can go together, just remember to pay me 1 more year's rent." But the audience was not satisfied. "If you go together, how do you calculate the time? Extend it to 10 minutes. Kana, give me back." Gajeel's face showed a rare solemnity. Glancing at Natsu beside him, he said calmly, "Use the ultimate skill directly." "Huh. There is no chance if we continue to fight head-on. Let's use the ultimate skills together. Maybe we can break through his defense." Natsu was disappointed and looked at Mobai again. After fighting with him for several rounds, it seemed that he really didn't cause any damage. Natsu simply gritted his teeth and the flames on his body began to burst out again. "Okay." Seeing this, Gajeel no longer cared about the arm that was just injured by Mobai, and focused all the iron magic power in his body. 2 powerful dragon-slaying pressures filled the whole place. Dragon-slaying ultimate skill, Red Lotus Blade. Dragon-slaying ultimate skill, Karma Iron Sword. At this time, Natsu and Gajeel finally took out their ultimate skills, and the magic power was surging wildly. Is this the last blow? Seeing this, Mobai also slowly gathered the magic power in his body. Fire, lightning, storm. Dragon killing secret. Dragons roar for thousands of years. The 3 magics with completely different attributes are constantly blended, and energy bursts out. The diversion was attached to the arm. Dragon scales gradually appeared on Mobai's body. The 3 dragons secret technique is also Mobai's strongest killer move. However, considering that the opponents are Natsu and Gajeel, Mobai deliberately held back. He only used about 60% of his power, which is far inferior to the power of Jelul in the Tower of Paradise against the enhanced magic elves. The explosive blade and the Iron God sword shot from the left and right sides in front of him. Mobai pushed his palms in front of him and also released his 3 dragons' power, instantly controlling its speed. The 3-color magic power flow was intertwined on the blade sword, and there was a faint explosion sound. "Break it for me." Natsu and Gajeel were unwilling to be outdone, and frantically squeezed the last bit of magic power in their bodies and injected it into the secret technique, striving to break the shackles of Mobai's 3 dragons' power. Have you tried your best? Mobai naturally knew that the two of them were eager to know the news about their respective dragon fathers. Even at the cost of everything. In the impact of the Dragon Slayer's secret art just now, they had already felt their full efforts. Mobai murmured in his heart, "I'm sorry, Natsu, you are not strong enough now, it's not the time to tell you the truth. One day you will find that the ignil you have been looking for a long time is hidden in your body." On July 7, 777, the Fire Dragon Ignil and the Iron Dragon Metalicana did not disappear, but hid in Natsu and Gajil respectively. The so-called Dragon Slayer eventually becomes a dragon. Once the Dragon Slayer magic is used too much, the Dragon Slayer itself will be assimilated into a dragon and no longer a human. And Ignil and Metalicana are using magic in secret to protect Natsu and Gajil from being transformed into dragons. But they themselves don't know. Refocusing his attention on the battle, the ground beneath his feet had already cracked as the three fought fiercely. The gushing magic power became more turbulent, as if it was going to tear the space apart. Many people in Fairy Tale were affected by it, and even had hallucinations. What is that sound? A dragon's roar. My eardrums are about to explode. I'll retreat first. I'm afraid they won't finish the fight and will shock me to death first. Although Mobai didn't use his full strength. Perhaps due to the influence of the previous battle, Natsu and Gajil were already exhausted. The light of the explosive blade and the iron sword dimmed, and then they were swallowed by the power of the three dragons. The two people who had completely lost their protection were hit hard, and their bodies were directly blown away and hit the building opposite. Ding! Kana hit the countdown clock. 0:01. The challenge is over. The final time is 4 minutes and 59 seconds, and Mobai wins.